just want me to change my
We'll call the meeting to order for Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2025-12 for June 17th, 2025. Those that like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to note that Councilwoman Shani Shields is joining us by Zoom. Councilwoman Shields, are you there? Can you hear Shani? Shani? All right, what we'll do, if somebody will call her and try to help her with the communication is set up. Yes. Make sure, Shani, that your mic is not muted.
It's not muted.
It's not? Okay.
I did. I figured I'd just take my notes inside the journal. Let's be like you.
Hey, I can't hear you. I see you, but I can't hear you.
Oh, I can hear you now. You're saying you can't hear us?
I can't hear you.
Maybe I'll just leave you on speakerphone,
Yeah, that'd be
so
fine.
at least you can hear and then you can respond when you choose.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hold on one
Hear us
second.
now?
Hold on one
Hello?
second. We're gonna try it one more time, okay? Hang on. Go ahead.
Ms. Cheney, can you hear us now? Ms. Cheney, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Hey,
Maybe she
we
just
can't
can't.
hear you.
I know.
Is your,
I know they're
is your,
working on it. But this is
Okay.
supposed to be on.
so just make sure the volume on your computer is up.
Yeah, that's what I did. It's all the way up from what John told me.
Because it was working fine earlier.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, okay. Okay, they can hear you now.
Okay. Okay.
Ms. Cheney, can you hear us now?
Did she hear you on Jeff's mic?
Can you hear
Put
me?
her on speakerphone, and then, so she'll be able to hear us, and then she can respond through her mic.
It's technology stuff.
I'm going to put you through the microphone, so I'm going to leave you on the phone, and then you can talk to the council that way, okay?
So we want her to hear us from your phone, and she'll respond on her computer, right? She doesn't have to respond by your phone. She can respond through her computer, but she needs to hear your phone.
Jeannie, can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
Are you picking her up from her phone or from the computer?
I think she can hear us through the phone.
Yes, I hear you.
Put that phone over here. Yeah, Josh.
It sounded like that was two. I think it might be working because it sounded like that was an echo.
Shani, can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, we're ready.
All right. I'm going to end this call then so John can speak through the microphone.
Okay.
We'll try it.
Okay, Shani, you can hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, we're ready.
Here we go.
For those in the public, we did make sure this was right like 15 minutes ago, so technology at its best. Entertain a motion from council to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion second.
Second.
Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Consent agenda passes unanimously. Good morning, Mr. Benson.
Morning, Council. We're here this morning for a public hearing on Legislative Bill 2025-07. It's an act to amend Chapter 62 of the Wicomico County Code titled Planning and Zoning Commission, Section 62-1 titled Repealer, Section 62-2 titled Creation, Section 62-4 titled Members Appointed Chairman, Section 62-6 titled Legal Counsel, and Section 62-7 titled Establishment of Department of Planning and Zoning and Community Development, to dissolve the Wicomico County Planning and Zoning Commission to create a Wicomico County Planning and Zoning Commission. To remind council and the public, traditionally the Wicomico County Council and the City of Salisbury Planning Commission, the Wicomico County Planning Commission and the City of Salisbury Planning Commission sat as a joint commission. Decision has been made to separate the two. Wicomico County will have its own planning commission, and as part of that process, this bill has been introduced to basically recreate the Wicomico County Planning Commission, and that's the purpose of this legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. At this time, we open the floor for a public hearing on legislative bill number 2025-07. If you have any comments you'd like to make in reference to this specific bill, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concerns. Okay. Seeing none, that concludes the public hearing on legislative bill number 2025-07. Entertain a motion from council. Mrs. Hurley, is this an introduction?
No, this is actually the public
Okay.
hearing and then actual
Okay. Just
adoption.
want to make sure we're, okay. Entertain a motion from council to approve the legislative bill number 2025-07.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
Mr. Cannon, I'd like to make an amendment to the bill that would set the, so we could set the time of the meeting through a resolution. I'd like to make that motion so the council can.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion second. Any discussion?
So just for clarity, that would mean if they want to change the time, we just pass a resolution
Do a resolution, set.
as opposed to set in law.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
And
Yeah.
also, the reason for that, asking that question is, the Planning and Zoning Commission is always met at 1 o'clock, and it kind of restricts some people from being able to serve on the commission if they want to, and it also would restrict people from coming to the meetings due to their work day. And hopefully we could set it to be like at 4 o'clock through a resolution. So.
Understood. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Mr. President,
Yes.
do you have the exact verbiage that you want to use to put into the bill? Or do you just want legal counsel to develop?
I'd like to see legal counsel put it in there.
Okay.
That would be- yeah.
Mr. Illuminati?
First, good morning, Andrew Illuminati, County Attorney's Office. I think an appropriate place to place this would be in 62-3 in subsection B, which currently addresses that there shall be one regular meeting each month unless there's no business pending. At the end of that sentence, we could write, the Wicomico County Council shall set the date and time of the regular meeting, and special meetings may be called as necessary at the discretion of the commission.
Mr. Benson, that looks like a good place to put it.
That's
Okay. Joe, are you okay with the?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And
As far as the special meetings?
like Mr. Illuminati said, that there's going to be a lot of months there's probably not even going to be a meeting.
Correct.
If you go by the history of what the Planning and Zoning Commission has been doing, most of the work has been for the city.
Correct.
And that's one reason we're changing it.
Okay,
So-
so, and as a second, you accept the?
Yeah, I accept.
The terminology, okay, great. Any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Thank you, Shaney. The amendment passes unanimously. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of legislative bill number 2025-07 as amended, say aye. We'll do a roll call, or not?
Roll call.
Yes, thank you. Councilman Holloway?
Aye.
Councilman Hastings?
He said aye.
Councilman Wynn?
Aye.
Vice President Merritt?
Aye.
Councilman Shields?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Legislative bill number 2025-07 passes unanimously as amended.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The second item, council, is the introduction of legislative bill 2025-08, an act to amend section 19-1 of the chapter 19 titled Certain Leases and Other Contractual Obligations, Conditions of the Wicomico County Code, to add a new subsection requiring county council approval by resolution for any contract for professional services and to define professional services for that purpose. The bill is being introduced today. There has been comment received, I know, from certain departments in the law department. Under the charter, council has to advertise a public hearing on this within 5 days, but you have 60 days to adopt it. In speaking to Ms. Hurley, council may want to have a work session after the introduction and prior to the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Entertain a motion from council to introduce legislative bill number 2025-08.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I just don't think this is necessary. We have a county executive form of government now, and I think this is kind of like taking away from that. So that's why we have an elected official for that position. Just like we're elected here on the council, that executive is elected to make those decisions on a day-to-day basis, whether you like the person or not. That is their job. So that's my that's what I have to say about it. Thank you.
I don't think it has anything to do with whether we like someone or not, James. I think the process is just that the council is trying to get more transparency in contracts that are going out. We're finding out that we are, during the budget process, we're funding positions in each of the departments. And we're finding out, in all honesty, through third parties that there are other contracts out there or people who are actually helping to assist with that department. So we're trying to wonder exactly what efficiencies are being created. When you're paying over $100,000 for a position in a particular department, you're expecting that person to run the department. And when you have consultants that are constantly coming in who are also managing those departments, the council just wants a better idea of how we're spending the taxpayers' money.
Okay.
Anybody else? No? Shane, do you have any comments?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. All those in favor of the introduction of legislative bill 2025-08, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Shaney?
Yes, I'm aye.
Aye, okay, fine, thank you. The introduction of legislative bill 2025-08 passes by a vote, chair votes aye, passes by a vote of 5-1. It's getting difficult to figure out how many we have. Mr. Benson, thank you.
Third item is the introduction of legislative bill 2025-09. It is an act to amend chapter 99 of the Wicomico County Code titled Vehicles County to require decals to be permanently affixed to the exterior of both front doors of county vehicles in a uniform manner, and to exempt the Wicomico County Circuit Court from the requirement of section 99(3)E that employees use a county vehicle for official business if available, or not receive mileage allowance. The council adopted a vehicle ordinance, and this is just an effort to clean up issues that have arisen, specifically the location of county decals. And then it's come to the attention of the council that the county circuit court employees are used to do things for the circuit court, and with their personal vehicles, they are not assigned a county vehicle, and either this needs to be amended to exempt them from that requirement, or they need to be provided with a county vehicle. So in order to make this work, this provision would exempt them from the requirement to use a county vehicle and allow them to get paid mileage.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Entertain a motion to introduce legislative bill number 2025-09. Moved. Second.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the introduction of legislative bill 2025-09, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Introduction of legislative bill number 2025-09 passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Benson. Good morning, Ms. Hurley.
Good morning, Mr. President, council members, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go on, I just want to mention that we can have the public hearing on both of those bills, 2025-08 and 2025-09, on July the 15th at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley.
Okay. So next on the agenda is resolution number 77-2025. This is appointing a nominee to the Wicomico County Council District 3 seat currently vacant.
Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 77-2025. So moved. Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Shani. Opposed? Resolution 77-2025 passes unanimously.
This is the swearing in of the new District 3 Council representative by Mr. Bo McAllister, Clerk of Circuit Court.
Yes, we should have mentioned that that the nominee was Mr. David Ennis. Dave, congratulations. We're glad to have you here. I know you served on the county council before. We're looking forward to having you work with us again for this next year and a half. And we have Mr. Bo McAllister here to swear you in, if we could. I guess by the podium would be the best location. Yeah, thank you.
That's kind of funny.
And his wife, Bonnie Ennis, is here. Bonnie, how are you? The Board of Education. Yes, sir.
Please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, David Ennis,
Do swear and affirm
do swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of
Wicomico County Council,
Member for District 3,
member for District 3,
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
Great job.
Thank you.
All right. Now it's a full house. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bill. Dave?
James, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Josh, thank you very much.
I'm back.
Okay. The next item for business is resolution number 78-2025. This is confirming the appointment of Stephen S. Lakin as Assistant Director of Administration.
Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution number 78, 2025.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. All those in favor of resolution 78, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Resolution 78, 2025 passes by a 5-2 vote.
Okay, next is
I would like to congratulate Mr. Stephen Lakin as our new Assistant Director of Administration for Wicomico County. I don't see him here today. That's okay. Yes.
Next is resolution number 79-2025. This is confirming the appointment of Benjamin Jordan as Assistant Director of Administration.
Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 79, 2025.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? One comment I will make is that this is sort of an unprecedented set of circumstances that the council is in right now. You might be wondering, why we're voting on two different applicants after we've already voted for one, and we already at this point in time have a Deputy Assistant Director of Administration. In this situation, the executive presented the county council with two applicants, one for one position only. As that's been done, the council then has the obligation to put the both candidates on the agenda, and we have to vote. We don't want to give the perception that the council or the council president is dictating what may or may not go on the agenda. One submittal would have been fine, since two submittals were requested, two submittals were put on the agenda, and two submittals were discussed. So the council has interviewed both candidates in closed work session to protect their privacy, and has come to an informal consensus in regard to our final decision. But we do not do that unless we do not do a final determination unless it is in open legislation for the public. So I'm just making that clarification for those that are following very closely. Yes, Josh.
I just want to add, or sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I just want to say it's great to be able to have two great candidates in your, coin flip of an options we've got. It's great to have more folks coming to want to work to the county to actually, continue to improve it and make it better. And it's great to have some really good options, and especially Mr. Jordan, who's just going to continue to be a shining star and a real leader for a very long time to come in Wicomico County. So just wanted to.
Yeah, I think I can speak for the council when I say the council as a body really has a lot of respect for Mr. Jordan and the great job he's doing as mayor and as an individual. So I think that's unequivocal. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution 79, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
You can't confirm Mr. Jordan. You've already confirmed somebody else.
I know, but we do have, I know, and I've explained that to the council members independently, but we do have to take a vote. And we understand that Mr. Lakin has already been appointed, but we're just simply going through a procedure.
No, but they voted aye, which is you're confirming him.
I understand. I've had that discussion with independent council members. I do recognize that.
You're confirming both Mr. Jordan and Mr. Lakin?
Well,
I had two votes, correct?
we have to.
You have to turn Mr. Jordan down.
I recognize that, Bob. I understand that.
But that's not what they just did.
Well, we haven't finished the vote yet.
Okay.
So this is resolution 79 confirming the appointment of Benjamin Jordan. So we'll do a roll call on this just to make sure that we're specifically understand where we are with this. Joe?
Hey.
Aye.
Shaney?
Nay.
Dave?
Nay.
Jeff?
Nay.
Chair votes nay. So resolution 79, 2025 fails by a vote of 5-2. Thank you, Mr. Benson. Mrs. Hurley?
Okay, next for your consideration is resolution number 80-2025. This is appointing the Compensation and Allowance Commission.
Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 80-2025.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Might note that there was some concern over the appointments that we were making. Actually, I believe we received 13 requests, and so all 13 requests have been recognized. 11 of those members will be on the commission, and 2 of those will serve as alternates. Any other discussion? All those in favor of resolution 80, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes unanimously.
Okay, next is Resolution Number 81-2025. This is declaring a 1-acre tract of property which adjoins the south side of Conley Mill Road and the east side of Railroad as surplus for the purpose of extending a natural gas pipeline. And Paul Wilbur's here if you have any questions.
Can a motion from council approve Resolution 81, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of Resolution 81, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Shaney. Motion is carried, resolution passes unanimously.
Next is Resolution Number 82-2025. This is to make an appropriation of funds to the Sheriff's Office from unanticipated revenue in the amount of $67,192.32 from confiscated funds account. And we have Major Todd Richardson with the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office if you have any questions.
Need a motion to approve Resolution 82, 2025?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have some questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Major, if you could. Thank you. Gentlemen?
Major Todd Richardson, Wicomico County Sheriff's Office.
Charles Schmeckel, Deputy Finance Director.
Thank you for being here. Joe, you had a question?
Oh, yeah. It's got a list here, and it says what I'm asking about is a weapons buyback. I presume that's deputies that have had these weapons in their possession. And
Correct. When we
You're taking out of
upgraded from
service.
45 caliber to 9 millimeter, we went to Glock and found out what they would give us in exchange for trade-in weapons, and the price was $250. So we allowed the deputies that carried the weapon during their career or retired with it to take that weapon with them, but at the same cost, so that if we had traded it in.
that was the basis of my question, is where you came up with the 250, because I would think those weapons would be worth a lot more on the open market.
They would be on the open market, but we're not allowed to sell them to
Right,
the
I
open
understand.
market, so
Yeah.
we're allowed to trade them in
Yeah.
to Glock, and that's what Glock would give us as a.
Okay, all right,
trade-in.
that was my question.
Okay.
All right, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Josh?
Just one other question. I know folks have asked in the past, when we recover firearms, what are the next steps, I guess? Do we destroy those, or?
Most firearms that have involved in any type of crime like that, yes, they're destroyed. We have a company that comes and destroys them to the point where they're not usable, but takes all the parts out that are usable and actually gives us a value for those parts. So when we destroy a weapon that was seized off the street, we do get some value out of it when they come depart it.
Does that get put back into this fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor of Resolution 82, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried, resolution passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, the next item for business is Resolution Number 83-2025. This is to accept grant funds and approve the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore as a vendor for the local management board, also known as the Wicomico Partnership for Families and Children, in the amount of $27,958 from the fiscal year 26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Ms. Early, entertain a motion for council to approve Resolution 83, 2025.
To move.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
Would you ask the young lady to come forward?
Yes, Ms. King, if you could. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? You've been busy.
Yeah.
If you could just let us know for the record.
Stephanie King, Director of Local Management Board.
Thank you very much.
So we got 7 of these grant funds coming up, different resolutions. I guess my biggest question is, where is the oversight once this money goes out? And I notice some of these grant funds are going to organizations that I know about, some of them are not so. And I was wondering, do you audit these companies or these organizations after you pass these monies out?
So we have, I think you asked me this question once before too. We're audited by the state. The money runs through the Office of Social Equity, so we're audited every year.
You're audited, but who audits these people?
We oversee their performance measures. We go out twice a month. We do site visits. We look at their financial, they submit financial reports to us every month. We go through them, all the receipts. They have to provide all the documentation before we will reimburse them. And all of the documents are required before we'll submit reimbursement to them.
So you reimburse this money out after they've spent it?
Yes.
So you just don't give them a check?
No.
Okay.
No. So they, it's all of them, it's 9 vendors that we have on the agenda today, but it's all reimbursement grants. So for expenditures in July, they'll submit it to our office by August 10th, and we review them. We look at everything that they've spent. We make sure that it aligns with what they said they were spending money on, that it makes sense, that they're not, just spending money on anything. And we submit reimbursement to our finance office.
That sounds better than just writing them, giving them
no.
a check so they can do what they want to with it.
Josh?
Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge, Mr. President, I did find the Mission of Mercy. I think we had a discussion about that the other day. I think that's a really fantastic program, probably one of the best things that we fund. Really incredible needs. So I did find it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the documentation. So.
Under prior
Yeah,
tranche.
got it. Yeah.
Good. James, do you have a question?
No, I really appreciate the you enlightening us on that, because I know I had discussions. I was trying to figure out, who holds who accountable on that. So that was nice to hear. Thank you.
Jeff?
So as you can imagine, we get a lot of questions about cannabis funding. And can you quickly, for the public's benefit, review, there's state mandated requirements on who can apply and what they can spend the money for. The applications come to you guys, you vet them, and can you quickly walk through that process so the public might have a better understanding that how the process works?
Okay, so we put out RFPs. The money comes in, and actually Andrew Illuminati could probably give you more of an insight on that than I can, on that process. Thanks, Andrew.
Good morning again. Andrew Illuminati, Department of Law. So the state, when it passed the legalization of adult use cannabis, created a bunch of different tiers where money would go, and 2 sets of money comes back to Wicomico County. The Community Reinvestment Fund, which by state law is limited to 3 specific programs that has to be targeted to areas that were negatively impacted by cannabis, enforcement in the past. That's all, the county has no control over that. That's all based on state statistics. That's what this money is. Then the county receives a percentage of the cannabis sales of the tax revenue. That comes back to the county, and that can be spent however that the county determines. We've actually, I think if you went into it, you would have thought, wow, we're going to get a lot of cannabis tax revenue, getting hardly any cannabis tax revenue, getting a ton of CRRF money that we're at 1.5 million.
It was 1.6.
1.6, and the various resolutions today look to appropriate 1.4. So part of the struggle is actually finding entities that are qualified to take this on, manage the money, and be able to redistribute back to the communities that were impacted. So this is money that cannot be used for any other purpose. It explicitly cannot be used for law enforcement purposes, even law enforcement proactive outreach. This is also separate from the opioid money, which the county gets from the opioid settlement, which is used for sometimes similar projects, but is a completely different set of money. So I know they came up around the same time, and sometimes but the opioid money is handled by the health department, but the health department does a similar advertisement, but mostly the point of the health department opioid money can go anywhere in the county, whereas this money is limited to pretty much the surrounding 21804, 21801 zip codes for the most part.
And
Thank you.
It's tier 4, tier 5 areas,
Right.
and we have a map that identifies that. So all of our vendors are given access to this map, and their clients that they serve can only serve members that are community members that live in this Tier 4, Tier 5 areas.
Okay. Thank you.
So with the struggle to find a way to give away this money, are you finding that there may be organizations being organized or invented that's going to be coming along in the future just to accept this money, that will be their only source of income?
It's possible that they would apply, and we look at that. Our proposals are scored by 4 members, 2 board members, 2 staff members. And if they submitted a great proposal, that's awesome, but.
So they don't have to have a history of public service to the community before they come. They could be new.
Yeah, it's not a requirement, but we do look at that when we're scoring the proposals.
Additionally, that's where council wanted the final say on this money, was to consider each application individually, but make that final determination. So the board advertises, does all the front work, and then comes forward to council, and each one gets considered individually. So.
And I can say, because I'm the appointee from the county council to their board, and I found it extremely surprising just how efficient the vetting process is, how thorough it is, because there are people who apply that have no business applying, and they get taken off the list right away. So Mr. King does an excellent job, and the board does an excellent job of making sure that this money is going to the best and most qualified organizations. From my perspective so far,
Thank you.
Fantastic. So.
We actually had 15 applicants this year, so 9 of them we elected to award.
Yes, in some point in time, there may be restrictions as to how many consecutive years someone may apply, and the funding, the amount of funding that may be allowed.
Yeah, and the board considers that too. We look at how much they've previously applied for, if they utilized the previous funds the way they said they were going to, if they did all of the programming things that they said that they were going to. And we actually had a couple applicants this year. They requested a larger amount, and we looked at that, and then the board voted to award them a lesser amount than they applied for.
Additionally, as a final, if you were, anyone who's awarded this year who does not spend the money by next year is ineligible next year. So that's the other part of it, is you can't just keep coming back unless, as Stephanie said, you're actually utilizing the money and utilizing it efficiently.
Anybody else? Okay. All those in favor of Resolution 83, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Shani. Motion's carried. Resolution 83, 2025 passes unanimously.
Okay, next is Resolution number 84-2025. This is to accept grant funds and approve Habitat for Humanity as a vendor for the local management board in the amount of $250,000 from the FY26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 84, 2025.
So moved.
Second? Second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution 84, 2025 passes unanimously.
Okay, next is Resolution number 85-2025. This is to approve grant funds for Lead for Life, Inc. as a vendor for the local management board in the amount of $71,236 from the FY26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Can a motion from council to approve Resolution 85, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution 85, 2025 passes unanimously.
Next is Resolution number 86-2025. This is to accept grant funds and approve Maneri's Dream Alliance as a vendor for the local management board in the amount of $131,676 from the FY26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
And motion from council to approve Resolution 86, 2025? Second? Second?
Second. Yeah, sorry about that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 86, 2025 passes unanimously.
Next is Resolution Number 87-2025 to accept grant funds and approve Recovery Resource Center as a vendor for the Local Management Board in the amount of $208,996 from the FY26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 87, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 87, 2025 passes unanimously.
Next is Resolution Number 88-2025. This is to accept grant funds and approve Shore Legal Access as a vendor for the Local Management Board in the amount of $138,765 from the FY26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 88, 2025.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 88, 2025 passes unanimously.
Next is Resolution Number 89-2025. This is to accept grant funds and approve the Child and Family Center as a vendor for the Local Management Board in the amount of $150,000 from the FY26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 89, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 89, 2025 passes unanimously.
Next is Resolution Number 90-2025. This is to accept grant funds and approve the Wicomico County Recreation, Parks, and Tourism as a vendor for the Local Management Board in the amount of $249,771.54 from the FY26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 90, 2025.
So moved.
Second. Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 90, 2025 passes unanimously.
Next is Resolution Number 91-2025. This is to accept grant funds and approve Wraparound as a vendor for the Local Management Board in the amount of $127,856 from the FY26 Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 91, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 91, 2025 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next for your consideration is Resolution Number 92-2025. This is extending an audit contract by and between Wicomico County, Maryland and PKS and Company for fiscal years 2025 and 2026.
Can a motion from council to approve Resolution 92, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 92, 2025 passes unanimously. This time, yes, thank you, Ms. Hurley. At this time, entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to convene as a local Board of Health.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Wicomico County Council is now meeting in legislative session as the local Board of Health. Good morning.
Good morning, council members. Matthew McConaughey, Wicomico County Health Officer.
Okay, let me, real quickly, Shani, you're leaving, are you? You're leaving us now? Okay. Yeah, I think she said she wanted to stay through the legislative session, and then she has things she does need to do. Thank you, Shani, if you can still hear us. Okay.
She should be able to still hear.
Okay, that's fine, yeah, that's fine.
So I'd have to switch the cable to my computer.
The presentation from yours or?
No, from that one.
Is everything good?
I'm gonna look.
Okay.
Whew.
all the way in the back.
Yeah, I think,
There it is.
okay.
All right, you got it.
Not doing good, get through this stack of paper.
Enjoy this. And he'll have it up there too. And up there. Each number, so that way I can go right to it instead of.
I was wondering about how you get through all that. That's a good idea. I would
Yeah.
the same.
And then I highlight stuff.
I wondered about it. It'd probably be too much to have each one of those as a separate file.
Thank you for this time today. Matthew McConaughey, Wicomico County Health Officer, and then I have Christina Gray, who's my Director of Planning and Assessment and is my epidemiologist as well. She will be covering majority of the material that we have since we'll be discussing health statistics and our recently completed community health needs assessment today. Brief agenda of what we'll cover today. As I said, we'll be covering our recently completed community health needs assessment and our community health improvement plan. We'll be providing a respiratory update, a measles update, giving some summer fun safety tips, talk about how federal funding has been affected here at the local health department, and then we'll cover environmental health as well.
Good morning again. My name is Christina Gray. I'm the Director of Planning and Assessment for the Health Department. We are not very data heavy today, I promise. I know usually I come at you with a lot of statistics, so more of a holistic general overview for you today. But of course, I do welcome if there are specific follow-up questions for the public or for you all for data points, please reach out to my office. So. All right, first and foremost, so in October, the last time we were here for Board of Health, we mentioned we were getting ready to ramp up our next 3-year community health needs assessment cycle. But as we sit here today in June, that process was just completed. So as a reminder, Community Health Needs Assessment, or CHNA, is a pretty much data deep dive. So we do this every 3 years. We look at what our current health problems in the county are, and we work with our partners, right? So our hospital systems in Tidal Health, we work with our neighboring county health departments in Somerset, and now Worcester as we onboard AGH into the Tidal Health system. And we figure out, of those problems, what do we need to prioritize for resources and go where they're most needed in the community. And so, as I mentioned, our current partners are Tidal Health in Somerset County. We will have the latest report both on our Healthy Delmarva Partnership website as well as the County Health Department site, hopefully in the next few weeks or so. And as I did mention, in May, Atlantic General Hospital did fold into the Tidal Health system. So as we work through some of these strategies, we do hope Worcester County Health Department will be a big part of that as well. So as we collect and analyze primary data for this big process, we always factor in how the social determinants of health are, affecting our health outcomes in the county. And so as a reminder, these are our upstream factors that really affect our quality of life, right? These are the root of our economic stability, our education quality, how we access healthcare, the quality of that healthcare, our neighborhoods, our built environment, and of course our social and community context. Pretty basic. If our residents can't meet their, basic needs of food and housing, their health is going to be impacted, right? So they might make different choices based on those things. So we always want to make sure that we're taking a look at those SDOH factors as we prioritize the work we do. All right. This process took months and months and months, so we collected a lot of different data types. So in addition to that social determinants data, we look at several other pieces of information in the process. So secondary data or data points that are already out there, we can just kind of take a look at them. They're usually provided by existing facilities and agencies. So our census data, how is our population growing? How is our age groups and the composition of our population changing over time? We look at risk factor surveys. This is our gauge on self-reported risk factors among our residents. So are they getting preventative screenings? Are they using tobacco? Are they getting physical activity? What is their weight status? All of that is in that source of data. And then, of course, vital statistics are pretty vital, right? So these are our birth and death certificate data that we capture, and that is published by the state on an annual basis. But because this, is very important, we want a lot of primary data to be collected as well. And we did that through a series of a few different ways. First, we had focus groups. So we had small interviews with general residents, as well as some specific populations. So we know that our baby boomer population is growing, and we specifically focused one of these groups on older adult health as we move into this next cycle. So that was very important to us. We also collected primary data among our key leaders in the community. So not just our healthcare leaders, but local government, education, social services, how this all fits together to improve health in the county. But because those are, pretty time intensive, we also, one-on-one interviews with key leaders, and of course, focus groups do take time. We had a separate set of surveys that were produced and distributed in the public. And this was just a way for us to expand on getting results and getting feedback from the community about their health perceptions and health outcomes in the community. And altogether, we had a fantastic response, especially compared to previous cycles for this work among these 4 primary data avenues. And what did we hear? So this was over 1,200 community surveys, 28 leader surveys, 53 focus group participants, and 9 key leader one-on-one interviews. We heard a lot of different things. So we heard significant challenges to timely and appropriate healthcare services.
If I could interrupt you on that.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, so you don't have to carry the water the whole way through. Very thorough survey. I agree with you. It's nice to see that many people participating. What do you mean when you say challenges to access timely and appropriate healthcare services? Any way to expand on that?
Yeah, sure. So what we heard a lot of times, access to specialists, especially in this area, can be difficult. I know specifically, off the top of my head, access to gastroenterology, to do colonoscopy screenings and things where we in public health are going, go get screened, but the wait times can be even a year plus at this point. So I know this is at the top of the hospital's priority to recruit those type of providers to not only come here, do residencies and internships, but to stay here, make this a place to, live, work, and play, right? So this is the bigger picture of come here, but stay here. So that was definitely one of the big challenges in timely services. We always see transportation as an issue that unfortunately, we heard in the last cycle, we heard again this time, but definitely specialist care was at the top of that particular point.
And I think you're right, too. The residencies that they're establishing are really going to make a big difference, I think.
It's huge, yeah. Very excited about that.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. We also heard, again, these are probably not, shocking, but behavioral health, chronic disease, top issues for our residents. I know we've presented data points in here before around some of those areas. Social issues, so housing, transportation, I just mentioned that, food access and how they can impact our quality of life. The community is looking for health leaders that work with them and not for them, so kind of meeting people where they're at. Also looking for health leaders that desired, again, to work collaboratively, increasing efficiency and reducing duplicative work. And I can speak to that point as well. We are really looking to increase the way that we do referrals, both between primary care providers and prevention programs like ourselves. So if we had a provider that identified a patient that is pre-diabetic, how they can very quickly and efficiently refer them into our diabetes prevention program here at the health department. And so, believe it or not, we're still based very deeply at times with faxes and phone calls and things. So moving those into more electronic bidirectional referral systems is something we're looking for in this next 3 years. And then finally, just awareness of resources and continuing to educate people on how to access those. One of the most important parts of the process is that we ensure there's not a gap, though, right, between what our residents perceive is the most important things of health in our community and what our healthcare leaders are actually addressing. Good news here. So what we're looking at in this graph is that both residents, which is the blue line, and our key informants, which again were those healthcare leaders, social service leaders, local government, said, and that's in orange, generally prioritize the same health concerns as you go from top to bottom here. So those lines don't digress that much, which is good news. And those areas included mental health, drugs and alcohol, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, weight status, cancer, older adult health, which again, I'm glad we had that separate focus group this year, as well as healthy eating. Made our jobs a little easier when we then have to take the next step. So we have all this data. What do you do with it? Well, you create a community health improvement plan, or CHIP. We live in all these acronyms, but so over the next 3 years, we will have a certain set of priority areas. And based on that data, we had several work groups prioritize these needs and come up with potential strategies. And so even though we have moved the needle in a positive direction over the past cycle, we want to continue that work. So you'll notice, if you remember from our last one, these areas they're not changed much from our previous 3 years. So those goals are better healthcare access. So making healthcare more accessible through clear language and improving health literacy, improving care coordination. So again, speaking to how we make those referrals more efficient, kind of bring them up into more of an electronic age here, that stronger referral system and service navigation. And then increasing the number of qualified healthcare staff to deliver those services to our residents. And so, again, programs like the internships and residencies the hospital is getting off the ground are going to be really instrumental in that work. For chronic disease, again, we're just continuing to improve chronic disease screening and early detection of disease. And we're also continuing to address any risk factors that we find from the data through prevention strategies, specifically healthy eating and active living. And we've been doing that for a while at the health department. We just had our walk at lunch last week, which involved our staff and several downtown businesses. It was an event we had for almost 20 years, and then COVID threw us off the loop. So we were happy to get that back up and running last week. It was a big success. And then finally, behavioral health is our third priority area, continuing to enhance screening, referrals, and intervention. We want to continue to reduce stigma for people that are seeking mental health and substance use treatment. And similar to all healthcare, specifically within behavioral health, continuing to strengthen care coordination and integration in the behavioral health system. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. That is kind of the big overview of the process. Yes?
Just interrupt there for a second. As far as the healthcare access part,
yep.
Are there more things we can do with the state, or I know you mentioned a little bit earlier as far as trying to get residency and things like that here, but the healthcare access part of things, I mean, for an example, even for someone like me who has healthcare, et cetera, had a small spot on my lip, and I was, when I was at the dentist, they said, "Oh, it looks a little dark. You should have make sure that's not any kind of, cancerous, precancer kind of thing." So I called my
dermatologist.
What is it?
Dermatologist.
Thank you. Too many ologists.
Yeah.
And and she's like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that seems like that could be an issue. Let's go check that out. I can get you in about 6.5, 7 months maybe. And, I'm just using that as an example for something that happened to me. But I hear a whole lot worse on all these other things that are out there. And so I guess I don't see the free market jumping in to fix this, and I don't know what we can do as far as setting up greater ability to get providers in here. And I know they can go elsewhere and get more money for various reasons, but one way or another, we really have a serious issue with, with actually having quality or the quantity of providers. So I don't know as far as healthcare, but yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. I just wanted to pause on that for a second, see if you have any. Is there anything more we can do as a region to continue to grow that? And I acknowledge that in the sense that we are very lucky in Salisbury, Maryland, and Wicomico County because, the surrounding counties have it a whole lot more challenging, or they have to come up here to us. But is there anything we can do to continue to do much more to attract more providers and more healthcare providers?
So I think there are some avenues for that. One is with this residency program that's really bringing in providers to the area. Another thing that we're doing as the health department, we're coordinating with schools of medicine to do internship and rural track with University of Maryland. And so we're bringing providers in, we're showing them what it's like to work in a rural health setting. We're also working on trying to get our HIPAA and HRSA information updated and current. We're in a provider shortage area, so that provides some compensation, some loan repayment options to them. So broadcasting and getting that information out is one way that we can bring in providers to the area. So those are the strategies I think that we could utilize to negotiate people down to the area. But specialty care is hard. Usually that's more defined around your larger populous areas, and that's just typically how it is nationwide. But avenues that we can look at, or telehealth or anything like that, to get that resource to the community members.
Yeah, and I think Lower Shore, how we've acted, and even in this process as a regional approach, is what it's going to take to really sustain and bring those providers to the area and keep them here. I will say, concurrently, the state has finished their similar needs assessment and improvement process and plan, which is aligned pretty much very closely to what we have here at the local level. So we know in terms of opening up resources, this is a priority at the state level in terms of what source of funding and resources they'll be able to provide. So hot off the press, though. So we don't know exactly what just yet, but it is a priority at that level as well.
Appreciate that. No, I don't want to speak for the council, but if there's anything that we can do to help, putting a letter in for any, extra needs or any extra attention that is out there, I think we'd probably be happy to entertain that, or back up our state partners who are trying to do so. So thank you for that.
Thank you. All right. So switching gears a little bit, just some health outcome updates for you. We recently wrapped up our latest surveillance season for respiratory conditions. This is typically between October and May of each year. And what you see here is a graph of the current respiratory season for the state. These are hospitalizations for influenza, which is the blue line, COVID, which is your red line, and RSV, which is green. So you can see here pretty explicitly this season dominated by influenza compared to COVID and RSV. We did see a more typical seasonality to this respiratory season. In the past few years, we've had cases start in October, especially RSV. We did not really see that this year. We, again, returned to more of that post-holiday peak for respiratory conditions. Another respiratory condition of particular note for us is highly pathogenic avian influenza, or HPAI, or H5N1. This is an airborne respiratory virus, extremely contagious and fatal for poultry, spread through contact with wild birds and other infected poultry, also through contaminated equipment, clothing, and shoes from caretakers, right? So humans can have a part in this process. For humans ourselves, the risk of contracting avian influenza is low, but not zero. Those with close contact with infected poultry, so looking at farm workers, may, obviously at a higher risk than the general population for this particular condition. And what we see symptom-wise can range anywhere from mild respiratory illness, so cough, fatigue, to severe pneumonia, organ failure, or even death. The state did release a statewide plan in September of 2024. But built partly on the work that's been in existence for a very long time here on the Eastern Shore. So the Delmarva Avian Influenza Joint Task Force convened for the first time, I believe, in 2004, so over 20 years ago. This work has been in place. And this is a membership including, of course, local and state health departments, Delaware and Virginia, state departments of agriculture, as well as the 4 major poultry providers in the area. And so we also know the popularity of backyard flocks has increased, which again then increases your potential exposure risk between humans and birds. So on the left-hand side, here, the Maryland Department of Agriculture produced some infographics this year available on their website, just, with some basic warning signs for those that may have backyard flocks. If they start to see some of these symptoms, just to be aware of what may be going on in terms of risk.
Just to acknowledge on that, of course,
Yes.
we are we have been, we are, and we continue to be. We will probably always be an area that the entire globe looks at, the Delmarva Peninsula, not only just because of the concentration of the poultry industry, but we're a flyway, and in Chesapeake Bay, you have a lot of migratory birds as part of that too. So, yeah.
Yes, and we did have a few, wild geese test positive, snow geese this season, so we definitely keeping an eye on that. And as we go into that next slide here, nationally, the human-to-human transmission, is null at this point, but kind of making a current human public health risk low. Since 2024, we have had 70 human cases of HPAI nationally, and we did have 1 death. Among those cases, the well over half of the exposures were actually through infected cattle and dairy herds. So this was a little different this time. But that exposure caused by believed to be migratory wild birds. Shared water sources between the herds and those particular migratory birds. Causing that interaction. And then another third of those human cases were exposures via poultry farms and culling operations. Nationally, about 174 million birds have been affected, but here in Maryland, almost 3 million. To date, 300,000. That's just the 2 counties, yeah. 2.8 million birds in the state. You can see the purple counties highlighted here on the map are the ones that have reported outbreaks over the past few months. Those were across 11 commercial flocks, but also 6 backyard flocks as well. Wicomico County itself has not had an outbreak, but you can see our neighbors to the west and east of us with Dorchester and Worcester have had about 11% of the total statewide birds were outbreaks in those 2 counties. So close to home, not at home just yet, but of course being aware because we are certainly have exposure risk here.
And just to touch a little bit more about this, MDA, Maryland Department of Agriculture, also did milk testing as cattle was the big concern, and that is still an ongoing process right now. And that's actually, I believe, done by the office here in Salisbury.
So another health topic that you may have seen over the past few months, I just want to give a brief update, is measles. This is a highly contagious communicable disease. It's caused by a virus and spread through respiratory droplets. The problem being, though, that those droplets can live in the air and live on surfaces for up to 2 hours, which doesn't seem like a lot of time, but certainly if you have people circulating in and out of a room or on a 2-hour airplane flight, you can see where that can get a little bit more complicated. And so to put that level of contagiousness into perspective, there is a measure that we use called an R0, or kind of the rate of disease. And essentially it's a ratio. So it represents how many new infections can be anticipated based off of one new case of a condition. For measles, that number for every case is potentially up to 12 or 18 other cases based on one. In contrast, COVID and influenza is estimated between 1 and 2. So if I was an active COVID or flu case, really, Matthew here to my left might be the primary contact, but that's about it. If I was an active measles case in a susceptible population, just looking around here pretty quickly, it's at least probably half the room, and knowing we've had people in and out of here the whole time. So you can see contact investigations for this type of outcome can be very difficult. What we see with measles, of course, is the characteristic rash, but also fever, cough, red eyes. Can be very complicated, including pneumonia, encephalitis, pregnancy complications, and as we've been reminded in this current outbreak, even some deaths, 3 deaths so far. Since June 6th, we've had about 1,200 cases reported across 35 states. A majority of those were concentrated in the west part of Texas, but we have seen some areas in New Mexico and Oklahoma with higher concentrations. And 12% of those measles cases were hospitalized of all ages. But when you really look down at the percent among those 5 years and 5 years and younger, about 1 in 5 of those cases have been hospitalized, so 21%. One of the primary forms of prevention is through our measles, mumps, and rubella, or MMR vaccine. And 95% of the cases reported in this outbreak were unvaccinated. The good news for Marylanders is that our cases remain very sporadic. We've had 3 confirmed cases so far in 2025. Those were all linked to international travel, and none of which were Wicomico County residents. A positive contributing factor to the low rates of disease in our communities continue to be the state's high level of vaccine coverage. We're one of only 11 states right now nationally that has at least 95% or higher vaccine coverage for incoming kindergartners to school. All right. And then rounding out some timely health topics today, let's have fun this summer, right? So we're all excited. School is out for most kids, I think, at this point. The trade-off for some of this, though, this warm weather is welcoming all of our fun vectors back, our mosquitoes and ticks and things like that, which are more active this time of year. Vector-borne diseases are those that are transmitted to us humans through the bites of infected insects. So West Nile virus, malaria, those are mosquito-borne, and of course Lyme disease, which is transmitted by ticks. Last month, May, was Tick-Borne Disease Awareness Month in the state of Maryland. In 2023, we had over 2,500 cases of Lyme disease in the state and 31 here in the county. That was up from only 5 the year prior. So that was a pretty significant jump year to year. Lyme disease is transmitted by the black-legged tick or deer tick. So you'll see that's the one you see on the screen here. In comparison to the size of a dime, still even in the adult stage, not very large. But we do have at least 5 other species of tick here in the area, in the state, that do potentially transmit different types of vector-borne diseases. And one of those that's becoming increasingly common here in the state is the Lone Star tick. And so that's the one that has the characteristic white dot on its back. This is the one you may have heard of before because it causes the alpha-gal food allergy, or essentially a meat allergy. So the alpha-gal is a sugar protein, and it is transmitted via the tick to a human, and at that point, a human can develop that allergy to beef, pork, and lamb, red meats. Exactly, yes.
I think I'd die.
I'm telling you, right? So we want to avoid this one at all costs. We have also seen this now, this allergy extend into other dairy products. So it started kind of with the focus on red meat, but now they're seeing it interact with, So no ice cream either, right? That's not a good summertime barbecue.
I just acknowledge my mother actually got this a couple years ago. So
yeah. So the concentration of the Lone Star tick seems to be on the rise here in the state. So I know a lot of times we've focused a lot with Lyme disease and the deer tick, but I did want to go ahead and put that on everybody's radar today.
And she already had she was unable to have any kind of seafood or shellfish or fish or anything like that. So her ability to get protein is really in bad shape now. Basically, we don't have a lot of chicken, which is great for us in the chicken growers, but bad situation.
So let's say you're bit by a tick. Is it too late? You just got bit by a tick. You've got the disease, maybe, possibly, or do you want to save that tick and bring that with you to the hospital so they can identify it?
So,
or is there like
great question. I was getting ready to lead into that. Yep. So we, we want to make sure everybody is at risk here for contracting these types of diseases, but it certainly groups children, older adults, dog owners, outdoor workers, and outdoor enthusiasts are at a higher risk. We do see these ticks in grassy, brushy, wooded areas. Prevention, yeah. I mean, my yard is not really that description, but even after a few hours of yard work a few weeks ago, I did find a few of the smaller, I think the baby deer ticks just from being in, pulling weeds. So you don't have to be in the middle of the forest necessarily to do this type of, just quick check once you're back inside. Loose fitting, long clothing when you can, but we know it's summer and that's not always, viable. Treating clothing with insect repellents up to 5% permethrin. But when you're back inside, you're going to check that clothing for ticks. If you do see any or just want to err on the side of caution, at least 10 minutes, throw your clothes in the dryer on a high heat is sufficient enough to kill what may be on your clothing. If you go ahead and take a look at the rest of your body, make sure, if you see anything attached, you can take a shower within 2 hours to remove anything that may not be attached to that point. But if you do, getting back to your question, Mr. Wynn, what you'll want to do is take a pair of clean tweezers, grabbing the tick very close to the skin. So you don't want to press the body. You want to get as close to the skin as possible because you don't want anything to be transmitted if you're squeezing it. Don't twist or jerk, and then gently pull up until it's kind of out of your skin, right? And you're not seeing anything else in that area. Wash your hands and that bite area either with soap and water or rubbing alcohol. But to your question, typically time is of the essence. If you have just come inside, you pull off the tick. Generally, what you're going to do is just wait to see if you develop any other further symptoms, then you'd want to reach out to your healthcare provider. There are tick identification services. I believe Johns Hopkins University has one that you can send them up for, but it is just to identify which type of tick that you have found. It is not, they don't test it to say, well, this did have Lyme disease or this did have,
Okay.
yeah. So it's more about the type of vector that may have the type of disease identification.
And you said you could put like something like peroxide on where the bite was?
Rubbing alcohol,
Yeah.
sure, yeah. And soap and water is just as good. So generally, I know a lot of times people with Lyme disease, you think about that characteristic bullseye rash. That doesn't happen all the time. So what you want to be very mindful of, and some symptoms can be weeks down the line. So just bearing in mind if you know you had this type of exposure and start to then feel fatigue, joint pain, muscle pain, something really out of sorts, go ahead and call your healthcare provider. That is, something that they would, you would want to discuss with them at that point.
One more question. Is there something that, should we be treating our yards with like an insecticide or anything?
Liquid 7.
Liquid 7, yeah.
Yeah, I believe there are options. I'm not.
Liquid 7.
Liquid 7.
Yeah. Go start at the house, go around the house, keep working your way out. Spray it. I think it's 3 ounces to a gallon if you use a concentrate.
Of course, I generally think that toxic chemicals are problematic in so many ways, but
Liquid 7 isn't toxic.
I hope, and I was about to say I don't know whether that is or isn't. I know there are a couple things like, especially for mosquitoes or others. There's a mosquito dunk that is actually another good one. But overall, we need to be so much better on. We should be we should be doing things like supporting the breeding of possums, because possums can eat like 5,000 of them in a year, ticks. Mosquitoes, the same thing. We should have bats, because bats eat about 900 per night, mosquitoes, things like that. So we need more biodefense, and we are not thinking of it in a holistic way. But yeah.
We could have backyard chickens.
Yeah, actually chickens.
Yeah.
And chickens do actually, yeah, exactly. Well point.
And I will say, as far as Lyme's disease go, the real risk factor is when you have something attached for up to like 36 hours.
Oh, yeah.
That's typically if it's been attached that long. And then you can reach out to your healthcare practitioner, and there's options for prophylaxis that you can get. It's typically it's once taken doxycycline, which will help prevent you from acquiring Lyme's disease.
Okay.
And it's quite noticeable when a tick has fed. It will be, even that adult here you see on the screen will grow in size pretty dramatically while they're trying to get fed. So definitely at that point, if you know that it's been on long enough for that to happen, I would go ahead and just reach out to your doctor at that point.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
All right. So other things, we're going to have fun this summer. So we're going to be out in the sun. We do know we want to go ahead and do what we can to prevent skin cancers. We have 3 major types of skin cancer. The most common are basal cell and squamous cell carcinomas, but less frequently, but more deadly and more serious is melanoma. And in the most recent state cancer report, we saw the incident rates of melanoma increase 1% year to year. So pretty noticeable. We also see rates of melanoma 73% higher among males in the state compared to females, perhaps due to occupational exposures, but, could be other factors as well.
We don't put sunblock on.
Well, and neither does 44% of the county. So what we found in one of the latest risk factor surveys is that only 56% of our residents reported wearing sun protection most of the time. So yes, obviously we do recommend, in addition to sunscreen, protective clothing, sunglasses, hats, avoiding outdoors during those peak hours of 10 to 4 when possible. And that's actually between 10 and 4 is when about half of UV radiation is received this time of year. So
A little bit of sun is good for you, right?
We all like the vitamin D, yes, of course. But yes, we want to do it safely, and we can still get exposure to the sun using with sunscreen. So, as we do have those longer, hotter days on the horizon, and I believe starting even in 2 days or so, we're really starting to hit a heat wave. We want to be aware of the signs and symptoms of heat-related illnesses as well. These can range anywhere from heat cramping through heat exhaustion, all the way up through a full heat stroke. In 2024, the state had 27 heat-related deaths and encounters for heat-related illnesses in our emergency departments and our urgent care facilities hit an six-year all-time high. In terms of prevention, fluids, drink plenty of fluids. Not just when you're thirsty, keep it going. On average, you're looking for 16 to 32 ounces of water or other kind of electrolyte type fluids per hour. Trying to avoid alcohol, caffeine, and overly sweetened beverages when you can. Similar to the insect protection we just talked about and sun safety, loose-fitting, lightweight clothing that includes sunscreen, wide-brimmed hats, and sunglasses can help cool you down if you are in heat for a longer period of time. And checking in on those high-risk groups, so young children, those 65 years and older, people with chronic conditions, and of course those that are working outdoors this time of year. So check on relatives, neighbors when you can. If you are a physical activity enthusiast and you're running or biking, try to do that in the early morning or late evening at this point, just to make sure it's a little cooler. And as a reminder, last September 30th, Maryland's heat stress standard in COMAR went into effect. And so these are the Maryland Occupational Safety and Health Standards that apply both to outdoor and indoor, so thinking greenhouses, poultry houses, dairy barns, these types of workplaces that employees can be exposed to heat indices at or above 80 degrees Fahrenheit for extended periods of time. Employers, if you have employees in these conditions, the standards do indicate that things like cooling and shaded areas for rest periods, suitably cool drinking water at no cost for employees, and an acclimatization plan for employees that are either new to this type of working environment or even returning after at least 7 days. So somebody goes on vacation, comes back, employers just being cognizant of that and helping them kind of work their way back into to those high heat scenarios. Once we reach 90 degrees heat indices or above, there are other high heat procedures that are implemented based on these standards. And the county, I believe, has its own separate plan for this at this point. Yeah. Last summer, fun reminder, food safety. So we are ready for those barbecues. We're ready to be on the beach, have those snacks. But much of that food we enjoy on the grill or those side dishes is perishable. So just a reminder that the danger zone when we're looking at food safety is between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is really essentially just where bacteria can have their fun, multiply rapidly in those perishable foods. Including the meats and poultry, but also even things like the fruits and vegetables that are sitting next to that for our side dishes. When preparing food, just 4 basic concepts. Clean, so wash your hands and surfaces often, but not the food. So this is a misnomer too. Washing raw meat really can actually open yourself up to more cross-contamination in the sink and prepping areas. So if you are cooking your food appropriately to temperature, that's actually not needed. Separate your raw meat from other foods. Again, cooking food to the right temperatures, internal temperatures. The USDA has guidance on this on their website. And then once that food is prepared, making sure that you refrigerate it promptly. I'm gonna switch over.
So there was a notice of funding termination across several programs that was received by the federal government. We were affected in 5 of our program areas. Thankfully, current staffing has not been affected to date. We were able to put them into other fund areas, and some of the programs were due to be sunset at the end of this fiscal year anyways, so we were able to float those in other programmatic areas. There's looked to be some potential additional cuts that we'll see, and these are in relation to tobacco, family planning, and teen health education. There's also growing concern with the dismantlement of some of these federal agencies, namely EPA, recently the ACIP. That will be a big cause for concern, especially if there's revisions on what vaccine schedules look like, and maintaining the health of our populace.
You mentioned that earlier. You were also talking about cross-cutting goals, and you mentioned literacy, the importance of literacy and cross-cutting goals. And I know with the issues we have with the federal funding in this county, I think not only this county, but I think in counties throughout the country, they've been witnessing a substantial influx, either through immigration or homelessness. And I know, I grew up here and I witnessed it very much so, especially over the last 5 to 10 years. So I guess I don't know if there's an independent group study that's been done or whether that would warrant an independent group study to see whether or not there is a substantial strain on our resources as it is right now. Not only with the health department itself, but with the health industry, whether it's services. I know the inability to pay comes into effect a lot. And I say this because someone should be evaluating it, because we're not going to have another census until 2030. And how do we go to our Eastern Shore delegation alone, or even go to our congressmen or our senators and say we need funding if we're really not sort of understanding what the data might be?
So there was actually a recent report done by Medicare, Maryland Medicare, and it kind of outlines what the potential cuts will mean for Marylanders, and I'll send you all that link when I get back. But it outlines, millions of dollars, and if the new regulations go into effect, you're looking at Maryland's funds being reduced by like 75%, unless we cut out certain people, not serving certain individuals. So it's devastating, is a light term for it.
I'm just curious as to how we, as an elected body, can go to any other.
So, Senator,
to find that we have it as the true data that would show that we have concerns.
And I think that would probably be need for a more comprehensive study and investigation how those funds would go out, and what individuals within our communities are accessing or utilizing those services, because there's still a vast majority of people who may not benefit from some of these established practices. It's more of the sliding fee scale or individual payer options as well that are served.
And to add to that, in terms of the data, we do use census data for a lot of things, but I think in terms of the aim of your question, we would really need to rely on our own house data. And I say this specifically at the top, trying to quantify the growth among our Haitian population here in the county has been very difficult. We know that the census data undercounts typically those that are, immigrants to the area, whether that is hesitancy to answer, but also we have found certain populations and Haitian are representative on our Health Improvement Coalition saying, well, we don't really identify as Black or African American. And so that's the general category on a census, race, ethnicity, right? So how are we quantifying where some of these growing groups are with data? We found that the census is really not helping at that point. So looking at our, and I think we brought that in October, looking at how our services have changed for using language line and things like that based on the type of language. Those are the types of data we'll need to rely on to look at change over time. So,
quick question,
Josh.
I just want to ask. It says on here, notice of funding termination across several programs. I guess I want to get a little more understanding of what are those programs, and then to the degree to which they're funded. I guess we in Wicomico County have to pass a balanced budget. The state of Maryland has to pass a balanced budget. The federal government, they don't care about a balanced budget. But so they're trying to go out and address that. And we've had both now current Medicare and Medicaid cuts proposed, of which I'm assuming some federal funding comes down through the state and through into this local program. So I'm glad that the federal government is trying to finally become fiscally responsible after all these years. But how is that going to then affect the need and the very serious needs that we have in this county?
So these were ELC funds, COVID carryover funds, and we were using those as data modernization. It also supported a nurse to do some workforce engagement, and luckily we still had surplus. We had some surplus funds from staffing turnover that we were able to float those positions and those programs out for this year. These were also affected to our behavioral health entities, and how we were able to support other behavioral health providers. It was our local behavioral health authority, so we were providing funds for them to be able to get supplies, medical supplies, things like that. So BHA had a little bit more funds, and the state supported those. As far as local health department, the ELC COVID carryover, we were responsible for that. And of course, we're budgeting and preparing for next fiscal year and what we know may or may not be available. environmental health. Unfortunately, we had a very limited wet season testing. I believe we had just about 2 small areas of the county that were in wet season for about 1 week this year. So we did not have a great condition for it. We did complete 269 applications. These are inclusive of new septic, replacement septic, tank only, and wells. We completed in fiscal year 25. The majority of these applications were received in the current fiscal year. So that means that we're pretty much all up to date on our new on these applications. About 15% were applications that were carryovers from 23 or 24. Legislatively, there was a new requirement from the state, from MDE, that determined these turnaround dates, and that we've just done 1 quarter of reporting, and we'll have a new quarter up in July.
Yeah, July 1st.
July 1st. So based off of their reporting dates for new septics, the turnaround time they believe is adequate is 3 business days. So 88.9% of the applications we've received we have turned around in 3 business days. For replacement septic tanks, 7-day turnaround. Of all the applications we received, 88.2% of those was turned around within 7 business days. For wells, 3 business days. For all well applications received, we've turned them around in 3 business days, 87.7% of the time.
Can you explain what turnaround means?
So what that means is we've received their completed application and packet. It takes us 3 days to finalize and give them the permit. So if you'd come in, you'd have your finalized packet, you submit your application, within 3 days, you could have your well.
How about new septic?
New septic, same thing.
Only during the wet season, though, because if they can't test it during the wet
Land evaluation is different than septic application.
Okay.
And the key term is, we receive all their completed information.
Talking about a failed septic that needs a new septic. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Those are good numbers.
Yes.
Those are really good numbers.
We're very happy, and the state has a transparent site where you can kind of go and see across the board where every county stands.
That's a huge turnaround.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah.
I have a question.
Good, Dave.
We've got a presentation a little bit later on from the newly created, I think, Countywide Water and Sewer Authority, however so. And as far as statistics, do you track or see trends over time as far as failing septic systems? Are there pockets where that's
yes,
more of a problem?
And that's something that I continuously update that group with Amanda Pollock and Adam. Yeah, he's back there, just making sure. I provide them with holding tank information and failing septic, and they put that on I believe it's a private GIS map overlay. So they have that information.
So they got the stats on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. And I believe Mr. Holloway
I've got some questions. If Laura wants to pull some pictures up. I guess it's been a year or so ago, we had one gentleman come in that was having problems getting a septic approved out on the Pittsville Melsons Road, I believe it was. And they gave him some time. I think Laura sent you that information. It seems as though if you look at the camper he's living in now, he's moved it into a more permanent home. Not that one. Go see if you can flip through them a little bit. We'll find this one, talk about this one first.
One of those.
Yeah, it's going to be the very last one.
Pittsville Road. It seems though that's been made a permanent home now. Have you been following up? Now, it's my understanding that you can't get a perk on that property. You had a private consultant come in. Is that going to be allowed for him to stay there forever, or?
We went through a settlement agreement with MDE, the health department, and the property owner. They have obligations they need to meet, and they should be building a home on that site.
So they've got approval now.
They do.
They do have septic approval.
Correct.
Okay.
But they have never been permitted to utilize the well or there's a septic system on that property. I believe, and they've been notified of this, they had 30 days to remove it after the settlement agreement. And all this information, the settlement agreement, has been provided to the county planning and zoning.
I don't understand. Is it 30 days after they get their house built?
It should have been 30 days after the settlement was signed.
So it should be gone by now then?
Correct, it should be.
So who takes action on what happens now?
I believe they've already been issued a notice by county planning and zoning.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm getting questions from citizens about this stuff. Go to Tillman Road. Okay, is there more than one picture, or is that the only one?
There's more than one on that one.
Okay, this is Tillman Drive in Walston Switch. Apparently, this has been going on for years. Now, code enforcement said it was cleaned up in 2023. I've asked for pictures of it being cleaned up, but I've never been provided those pictures. The complainant says it's never been cleaned up. There was a real estate agent that was trying to sell a home next to it. And also, supposedly, there's 4 people living in that that camper. And according to the code enforcement officer in an email string, the guy threatened to go get his shotgun if he come on the property. Well, you don't have to go on the property to see. This is taken from the public right-of-way or private right-of-way. And it's been this way for years. And the complainant says they have contacted the health department numerous times about this, and I was wondering what action you guys are taking on this property.
We did go out in 23. However, the only thing we can do is issue an abatement order if they're connected to the well or to the septic system. That's really all we can do.
So they're not connected to the well or septic?
We've never issued a permit for it.
So are they connected to the well or septic? Do you check for that?
We can go onto the property and see, but we need to receive the formal complaint from them. And when we went out in 23...
I'm sorry, who do you need to receive the complaint from?
We just need to receive a complaint. If you want to send it to me, I can make sure it's done.
Apparently, according to the complaint, they've complained numerous times. Now, they don't want to give their name because...
I would need to receive a complaint. I know we went out in 23 and we issued an abatement order, but that's the most current complaint or issue that we've been notified of.
Did they comply with the abatement order?
I believe so, because we did not have to reissue anything additional.
If someone complains to the sheriff's office, do they talk to you?
If the sheriff's office lets us know, yes. If not, then...
There could be a disconnect there.
Yes.
I know that's usually a first place that folks go to complain for something.
So when you issue an abatement order, what does that mean?
We are telling them, if they're connected to a well, we would issue an abatement order. The abatement order would just be that you need to pretty much cease and desist. If that doesn't...
Cease and desist, you mean they need to leave?
They need to disconnect from the well, basically. And then we would also send it to county planning and zoning. And then if it escalates, then we would go to the county attorneys to process through that if they don't abide by the abatement order.
Abatement order would appear to me that the abatement order would mean that they needed to vacate the property immediately because the health standards wouldn't allow.
I do not have the authority to remove like RVs or anything from a property. That's all under county code, and I believe that's enforced by county planning and zoning.
I guess what Joe is trying to say, if you have someone who is obviously in a set of circumstances like that, I mean, it's a terrible health risk to the family, to the children, if there are children there. So who is it that's in charge of making sure that this issue is resolved? Is it the health department? Is it the police department? Is it planning and zoning? Who sees to it that these people vacate the property?
I know that I cannot enforce or do any vacation of a property unless there is.
If they're there with no hookup to a septic system, and say there is 4 people living in that camper. So what do you do in that situation? Do they say, oh, we take it away, or do you just believe them, or do you check to see if it's running in a ditch? Do you see?
If we find any effluent on the ground, we would issue an abatement order, and then we can process it up to environmental crimes.
You know, when I called you about the issue in Parsonsburg.
And we had sent someone out, but we did not see any issues.
Because they were taking it over in the woods, according to what the neighbors said. And they've moved those campers, but now they've got somebody living in a storage shed.
That's not considered a dwelling, and that would probably have to go through.
Okay. So the Powellville Willards Road is, I've had complaints about this for numerous years, and it was always labeled as a hunting camp. It's actually a campground with 15 campers with permanent structures built over top of the trailers, and it's got a seesaw in the yard. Looks like part of a playground. Now, I've been told that when I went to planning and zoning that it was a hunting camp, but there are people, the complainant says there's people there, especially on the weekends. Basically what it is, it's a resort campground, I guess you would call it, possibly. So when I questioned some of the neighbors, I was told the health department has approved this with a tank to be pumped out. Is that correct?
We have nothing in our system about any permits with this property.
So how does that exist? How does the health department let that exist legally?
Well, this is the first time we've been notified of it, so we will have to go and investigate it.
I was told that they have a permit from the county to have a pump tank on the property. Now, this was issued years ago. And
I would say in our system, we have no knowledge of this property.
Whatsoever. Okay. Unfortunately, I run into the person that complains about this a lot. We travel in the same circle of friends, I guess you could say. So anyway, Archie Dennis Road. Rumor has it there's people living in that camper without
No
services.
permits.
Huh?
We have no permits on this as well.
I mean, so do you follow up on these when complaints are made?
We do. We send somebody out to investigate. We look for any effluent or any attachments through the systems.
So if you issue a abatement and then nothing happens, what happens then?
We escalate it. We would probably do another abatement order, and then we would go to county legal.
There's places on the east side of the county, and I'm sure there's places on the west side of the county. Shaney's not here, Jeff is, that mirrors these things. And it's getting, I'm one of these people, live and let live. I never go to complain about anything unless citizens comes to me, but unfortunately in the past few months, past year, I've had a lot of complaints, so.
And I think too, you know, within your county code, RVs, recreational vehicles, they're typically only allowed to be on a property for 30 days. So that's where enforcement of that would come from the county side and not from the health department.
I guess the biggest it's like the fellow with the campground. He says that he spent thousands of dollars in 2 years trying to get a septic system put on a farm so he could put a mobile home on there for a family member. He says, and I ride by this every day, and he says it angers me. That's not quite the word he used, but anyway, you know. So that's where this is coming from.
Got the point.
Anyway.
Thank you for taking the questions and addressing those issues. Yeah. And we appreciate your presentation.
Well, thank you all very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Entertain a motion to adjourn from local Board of Health and reconvene in the legislative session of the Wicomico County Council.
So move.
Second. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? At this time, we open the floor for public comments. If you have any comments you'd like to make, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concerns.
Julie Giordano, County Executive. I wanted to comment on Legislative Bill 2025-08. I want to take a moment to remind this County Council of November 5th, 2024, the day that Question A failed. For those who may have forgotten, Question A proposed eliminating the executive branch of government and reverting to the council form of government. The voters of Wicomico County spoke loud and clear, and they do not want the council to be the sole governing authority. What I don't believe they anticipated was that despite that clear message, this council would seek to circumvent the will of the people, using legislation to chip away at the inherent authority of the executive as outlined in our charter. This is not only a blatant disregard for the voice of our constituents, but it constitutes an abuse of power and a dangerous backdoor erosion of the balance of government. I want to thank the Department of Law for your detailed and well-reasoned review of Legislative Bill 2025-08. I want to express my full agreement with your conclusion that the bill is in direct conflict with the Wicomico County Charter, egregiously oversteps the council's authority, and if enacted, would have deeply negative consequences for how we do business here in the county. I sent this council numerous concerns from several departments, outlining the negative impact this bill would have on their department. And it is particularly disappointing that this county council chose to introduce this legislation without first holding a public work session. A bill of this magnitude impacting procurement authority, employee conduct, and vendor relationships warranted thoughtful discussion and interbranch collaboration. This should have been an opportunity to gather input from all departments, legal counsel, and the executive branch to ensure any proposal was lawful, workable, and fair. And instead, this was rushed into introduction, sidelining open dialogue in favor of a unilateral action that risks serious consequences. And I also want to address the extremely harsh and punitive language in paragraph 7. Criminalizing internal administrative decisions, threatening employees and officials with fines and removal, and making them personally liable for payments, many of which may fall into a vague and undefined category of professional services, is not just excessive, it's demoralizing and destructive. This language lacks balance, professionalism, and any sense of proportionality. This approach undermines employee confidence and makes it far difficult to recruit and retain qualified individuals. I do, however, appreciate that the council acknowledged that this legislation is not appropriate for our sheriff's office and state's attorney's office. That recognition is important. However, I respectfully remind this council that every department within the county is vital. From environmental health to emergency services to IT to finance, all deserve the same respect and professional courtesy. No department operates in isolation, and every one of them relies on professional services to deliver critical work to the residents of Wicomico County in a timely manner. And we do not work once every 2 weeks. We operate daily and therefore need to be able to construct business daily. I will finish in just 1 second. This bill as written will only delay operations, increase legal exposure, and drive up costs due to fewer vendors willing to engage with us under these restrictive and hostile conditions. And I urge this council to withdraw this legislation, or at a minimum, return to the table for a full and public work session that allows for transparent input and collaboration. If withdrawal of this legislation will not be considered, I am respectfully asking the council to consider 4 amendments. The first is to allow county departments to continue utilizing professional services with appropriate oversight from our finance department, purchasing, and the executive office. This is the same professional courtesy that was extended to our sheriff's office and the state's attorney. The second is to require only the executive office come to this council with a resolution for professional services, rather than burdening all the departments. And the third is to permit department heads to submit a quarterly report to the council listing the professional services or vendors that they use, the scope of work, and associated costs for informational purposes. They would also make themselves available to address any questions or concerns this council may have. And the last is to remove paragraph 7 in its entirety. Threatening employees with criminal charges, fines, termination, or elected officials with removal over undefined violations is not only beyond the authority of this legislative body, it is an egregious overreach and a clear abuse of power through legislation. There are far better ways to go about this, ways that do not sacrifice our charter, our employees, or our ability to govern efficiently.
If you could supply that prepared statement to Mrs.
Sure.
Hurley, that'd be great. Thank you.
Do you want to just email? Oh, sure.
Any of the public comments? You can, Ms. Hurley.
Okay.
Thanks. Yes, sir.
Welcome, Mr. Ennis.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jim Atkins, Wicomico County. I don't know where to start. So, I'm not mad at you. I'm not disappointed in you. I'm just thoroughly confused. We've been down this road once, and I guess once wasn't enough, so we'll go down it again. We have now confirmed an assistant director of administration does not live in the county. One of the major things that the county executive continues to talk about is secession. Well, the assistant director of administration can't succeed the director of administration if necessary because they don't live in the county per the charter. So second time the council has done this. Don't really know why. The other thing which is a little disappointing is during the budget session, the director of administration and the county executive, when questioned by the council regarding the chief of EMS, that by defunding that new position, that the assistant director of administration would be able to handle that job. They both sat here and told the council that. I don't believe the assistant director of administration has any EMS experience. So how is he going to coordinate and operate the SWOT analysis and determine where EMS is needed in this county? So what are we going to do with the SWOT analysis now? Are we going to have one? Are we going to have countywide EMS? What are we going to do? Because we filled the position that was going to determine how the SWOT analysis would work with somebody who has no experience with EMS and SWOT analysis. So just confused, disappointed. I'll let it go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
Good afternoon. I guess it's that. Robert Taylor, County resident and Salisbury resident too. I stood here at the podium last night and I said that the city council was the greatest show on earth. I may have been mistaken. I came to a county council meeting and it looked like a food fight broke out about 5 or 6 minutes ago. I wasn't aware of that ordinance. I hadn't looked at it about the professional services, but kind of scanning it over, I don't see anything that's wrong with it. I did hear the comment made it violates the charter. I think that's probably the provision of the charter that says the council can't tell the executive branch what to do, or words to that effect. I don't think that's the case. I graduated from law school 55 years ago. I think I can still read the law pretty well. But be that as it may, I also heard the comment made that She thanked you all for saying that it doesn't apply to the state's attorney's office, and I think somewhere else. Well, those aren't departments of the county legally. I know in the budget they're listed as departments because we fund them, the county funds them, but they're not true departments, so you don't have administrative authority over them. But anyway, I'll take a look at that. Has some good sound to it. I did come to make a couple other comments, one on the new Planning Commission. I made the same recommendation to the city, and that is that they try to endeavor, not required, but endeavor to appoint a wide variety of people. And let me be a little bit more specific. The current commission, a lot of people object to it, including me, because it's been so overloaded to the Greater Salisbury Committee, which has a definite agenda. And it's not really an independent commission. Hasn't been for years, unfortunately. Try to avoid that. Try to get people from a wide variety, geographically, politically, what have you, and avoid having a concentration. And that concentration also goes to the development industry. And that was another problem with our existing, because many of those same people who were affiliated with the Greater Salisbury Committee are also actively involved in development. So it's not truly independent. The other thing is, is it still on the agenda, the work session for the sewer and water?
Yes.
Well, just a couple comments on that. I think you'd be wise to take a look at the plan that George Milan Bureau did about 3 or 4 years ago. 2 reasons. Make sure you want to stay with the plan geographically. And secondly, the costs have increased significantly. I'm told probably at least a third, maybe 40% of what they were putting in. What was that? Probably about 4 years ago, they did their cost analysis. So those are a couple things I think you should do on this, as well as whatever else you're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other public comments?
Good morning. I don't know if it's still morning. My name is Monica Brooks. I'm a resident of Wicomico County. And so just a couple of quick things in the spirit of the health department having been here today. I did want to just kind of give the county a couple of things to encourage our health department, which I'm sending them my own emails, to push forward. One of the things, and I don't know their purview in this, but helping get healthier options in our schools for the kids, the food. It's awful. If you don't know, just go and take a look at your typical lunch options. It's really not healthy at all. I know that I was listening to the statistics even before I got here about the data about the health concerns and things, but we want to start with our kids. Want to encourage, and this is not just for the health department, it's just kind of Parks and Rec, a little bit of health department, but increasing our tree canopies so that the kids can be at play in more areas, making sure there are water fountains in all of our parks, not the ones, I know the ones that you all have control over in Wicomico. And I did mention this, and I apologize, President Cannon, he asked me to provide him with some street names when I talked about some sidewalks and things like that, but which I will do. But if we could possibly get some walking trails that are not, they're the trails that go through the woods, but if we could possibly get something that's on sidewalk-ish on the west side, that would be also a great incentive for people to be healthier. We have 2 health clinics one new health clinic that will be coming on the west side to help with some of those issues of health concerns. But if we can encourage people to live healthier lives, get outside more, that would be fantastic. The last thing I did want to mention in regards to the
wells. I've been pushing through the state for years trying to get well testing mandatory through our state. There is no mandatory well testing, and everyone who gets a well tested usually has to pay for it. But perhaps there could be something that can assist people. Of course, we know that many of our neighbors are still suffering from the contamination of the PFAS from Purdue. There was a contamination on this side from the RV park PFAS as well, but we don't have any mandatory well testing. So I just kind of want to put a bug in you all's ear. I don't know if that's something we could do through the county or if that's something that only has to come through the state. So thank you so much for your time, and welcome, Mr. Ennis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
Good afternoon. Vaughn Siggers, Wicomico County resident. I had no intentions of speaking, but I remember complaints that I've been receiving recently concerning the transit system, how that people are not able, who are handicapped, to carry their equipments on the buses with them so that they're able to utilize them afterwards because they don't have the ability to walk the distances beyond getting on and off the bus. And that there are those people who are riding the buses who are pretty hostile towards some of the passengers. They don't want to share space. Particularly, the complaint says that the older people are really cantankerous. They prefer to have their bags and purses and what have you on the seats to prevent other people from sitting beside them. They complain that the drivers are not particularly professional, making unnecessary stops or stops along the way and doing their own personal. It just seems like a situation that needs to be looked into. I will probably miss relating to you some of the complaints that I've received if I try to recall them all, but suffice it to say that it's a system that looks like it may be cracking or breaking a little bit and just may need some attention to make sure that it's functioning properly for everybody involved in utilizing them. Also, the waiting area in the downtown area where the transit occurs, I'm told that the bench has been removed, and so in inclement weather, there are concerns that people aren't able to get in there and utilize that facility. I don't know if it's just hearsay that may be removed, that may no longer be a transit area. Anyway, people are concerned that they're going to be inconvenienced, and if it's relocated somewhere, then that just complicates the problem of utilizing the service. So, there you have it.
Thank you, Ms. Sears.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, that concludes public comments. Council comments.
Sure.
Joe?
I guess I'll respond to the county executive's comments. We've had concerns about some of the money being spent. If you go into Open Checkbook, you'll see that she's been hiring a consultant that was supposedly, I thought, at one point in time, just doing work for one department, and then seems like it's going to other departments. I think that was what progressed this to be put on the agenda. She has herself. She has a director of administration. She has an assistant director of administration now, and she had one that was hired. And then to be having to hire another consultant to basically help run the county, I think became a concern. She's got many department heads. Most of these people make over $100,000 a year, probably well-deserved. But to have one consultant that is just hired to, really don't know what he did, what he's doing. So I think that's what instigated this. As far as slowing down government, that comment was made, maybe we need to. We've seen up here on the council, we've made some decisions that has been brought to the council. Some of them are decisions, some of them that the executive or some of the departments have brought to the council that we made rash, quick decisions on that we probably should have taken more time. So maybe this will be, this will slow down the actions of government a little bit. So anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you all for being here today and for watching on PAC 14. I just want to say, I guess to the county executive's request there as far as greater clarity on the 2025-08 and maybe a work session. I'm perfectly fine with a work session. Sounds like we want to be thoughtful in how that happens, how this is implemented. But I think we can certainly take our time to make sure that we get it right. But I think the intent is right. But yeah, so I'm happy to see a work session on that, as well as a work session on the Barron Creek Road situation, or maybe I should say Barron Creek Bridge, because I don't think you're going to be able to get any bit of a road in there without it being a bridge, given the amount of water. But I'm not a engineer in any way. But regardless, I do think we need to move the issue up with Barron Creek Road specifically. What are we doing with that? Because it's been around for far too long, and I think we either need to be clear that we're going to spend a whole lot of money, many tens of millions of dollars, or we're going to kill it. But one way or another, I think sitting on the fence for almost a decade now has not been helpful. So I would love to see that come to an understanding and make sure that we can pull all the right folks to the table so that we can actually get some clarity on that, where we're going, what's actually happening, and what's next. And then lastly, I'll just say, I just want to say congrats to Mr. Ennis, sir. Thank you for joining the council, and thank you for your agreeing to participate in service again. So we appreciate it.
I'm good.
Just, I too want to welcome aboard Councilman Ennis. Thank you. School's out. Hope everybody has a safe summer. Last week I had the honor of sticking a shovel in the ground at Fruitland Primary School. So that was exciting. That was a long project to get to that point, and a little hiccup in the funding from the state, and it ended up getting worked out, and it just goes to show what happens when everybody works together and moves forward. I do want to say something about the Compensation and Allowance Commission. There was some comments, and we got I got a few text messages and emails. The charter requires that the council put together a commission of 11 people on this. And as was previously stated, we had 13 people apply. We didn't have 40 people apply, and we picked through them and turned a bunch of people down. We had 13 people apply. We have 11 on the committee and 2 alternates. So to the folks that were complaining and questioning, I suggest that maybe next time when the opportunity arises to serve on a commission, you actually apply. That's all I got. Thank you.
Dave, you have any comments?
Yep. I first want to thank the council for the vote of confidence and allowing me to join you. As Mr. Cannon mentioned, I did serve on the council back in 2000, 2001. Seems like ancient history now. That was also by appointment. And just by way of mention, I've served on the Board of Zoning Appeals for the last 30 years, off and on, and also on the Ethics Committee. So since it's baseball season, I think I'm becoming the Wicomico utility player, or designated hitter maybe. But I am looking forward to working with this council, and it seems as though there are many issues. I don't know if this is good timing to join the council or not. But I've committed now, so I'm here, and I'm really happy to be part of this council and look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
I like your old school brief book there.
That's what Ms. Hurley gave me for my first meeting, and I promise I didn't scribble on it, so all good.
Under council comments, I'd like to say I would agree with what's been said earlier, is that the council certainly would look forward to having a work session so that we can truly evaluate legislative bill 2025-08. We understand that there could be some concerns on that. We do feel, with Mr. Benson's help, we feel that it's a very stable document as far as legally concerns might be raised. We feel it has very strong grounding as far as what we're attempting to do. But we've also had a lot of emails from department heads as such. So we want to make sure that, we don't use a shotgun approach, that this bill becomes something that's effective as the council desires, and I think which would benefit the county as a whole and as well as the citizens of Wicomico County. Barron Creek, we certainly do need to have a work session on Barron Creek. I'd really like to try to find out what the reality of options we really do have. It's been talking about, well, you might get 80% state funding if it's a bridge. It's nothing more than someone stating you may get 80% payments from the state of Maryland if it is a bridge. Has nothing to do with what the total cost might be. It has no idea whether it's going to take 1 year, whether it's going to take 5 years, or whether or not they'll even consider the funding at all based on the circumstances that the state is in right now and I guess the overbearing threat for a lack of federal funding. We have no idea where the priorities are going to fall with the state just yet, but I think it certainly is worth evaluating as we voted on it earlier through the capital improvement program. I do not like the fact, and I'll say it a million times, I do not like the fact in a capital improvement program of funding 1 year and then having nothing else there. That's not a plan. I think the state, and I've said before, the state of Maryland looks at that and they go, what is this? Is this county organized when they tell us they're going to spend, what is it, 1.75 in 1 year, and there's nothing on the out years and there's no description on what the intent might be? That's my concern in the capital improvement program, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we vet this properly and make sure we're heading in the right direction so we know what we're doing. So that being said, Mr. Ennis, welcome. Thank you. Very much so. It's a pleasure to have you here. I know from your prior experience and your work experience as well and your work ethic that you're going to be an excellent addition to this county council, and I know I'm really looking forward to the next year and a half of working with you. Thank you. So that being said, entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to go into an open work session. Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Legislative session ends. I know we have Amanda Pollock. We have members of Public Works here. If you'd like to join us, we will take a 5-minute recess, okay? And then we'll get moving because we want to be out by 12:30. What do you think? Reconvening as Wicomico County Council for an open work session for June 17th, 2025. The item on the agenda, the only item on our work session agenda, is an update on countywide water and sewer. So thank you all for being here. From left to right, if you'd let us know who you are for the public and for the record. Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Adam Corey, Executive Director of Environmental Services, Department of Public Works.
Good afternoon, Mike Swaby, Deputy Director of Public Works.
Hi, Amanda Pollock. I'm with the Center for Watershed Protection.
Paul Wilbur, County Attorney.
Thank you all for being here. Mr. Swaby or Ms. Pollock, who wants the floor?
I'll just do a brief intro if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council President, Council members, Councilman Ennis. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to provide this important update on Wicomico County's water and sewer infrastructure development program. I'm joined today by my colleagues as introduced. Our presentation today highlights key recommendations that will guide municipal and county infrastructure expansion, particularly in underserved rural areas and communities with failing septic systems. We will also review the status of major sewer extension projects in Salisbury, Parsonsburg, Pittsville, and the West Side Regional System, along with associated engineering efforts and cost projections. Finally, in a single chronological snapshot, we'll review milestones for each component of the program, including updates to the Comprehensive Water and Sewer Plan. These milestones will include what we've accomplished, where we are sequentially in the process, and what hurdles are ahead, as well as marking the need for interagency coordination to secure necessary funding and regulatory approvals. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Pollock.
Great, thank you. And
Afternoon.
Adam, you can go to the next slide. So good afternoon. We're going to start today with just kind of some brief history on how we got here, and then talk about the overall implementation strategy for the Water and Sewer Master Plan, and then really spend most of the time talking about the specific projects and give you an update on where we are. So just as a reminder, in 2021, George Miles and Buer finished the Water and Sewer Master Plan for the county. And just from a very high level, the key recommendations were for in areas where there are septic systems and the areas nearby a municipality to try to tie into that municipality. And then in the rural village areas to look at having standalone wastewater systems. So again, this report was very high level. It looked at the entire county. Now we're diving in on the specific details of many projects that we'll touch on. So next slide. So when we first met with you last year, we went through this implementation strategy, just kind of highlighting that there are many facets that each of these projects will have, from that high-level state legislation to enable a sanitary district. There's planning efforts, engineering, finance, public outreach. So I'll talk today about where we are on many of these, but we're going through this systematically, working through implementing the master plan, but it's, this is a long effort. This is many, many years. So I just wanted to kind of put this up for a frame of reference since you've seen this slide before. Okay, so there are 5 projects that we're going to talk about. First, just the sanitary commission. Oh yeah, there's.
Yep, there it goes.
Yep, we're good. So for each of the projects today, we're going to look at a timeline like this. And so we've tried to map out where we've been and where we're going and where we are. You're going to see a yellow arrow on each of the timelines. So just talking about creating a sanitary commission, as you all know, that the first step was to get the state to enable that. So that legislation has been completed. The last time we were before you was last December to talk about the structure of a sanitary commission. And at that point, what we were discussing was more of an advisory board structure. So we heard from you, we took your recommendations, and we've made some adjustments, which I'll talk about in a second. This is just to give it to you as part of the overview, but knowing that we need to come back for the actual legislative process to have that adopted, and hopefully that will be in the next few months or this fall by the latest. And then the next step would be to be approving sanitary commission members, and then establishing that sanitary commission and having their first meeting and establishing all their bylaws, and then beginning to have quarterly sanitary commission meetings. So the changes, the things that are a little bit different, and the way the legislation is now worded, and it's being reviewed by the county attorney, is that instead of having an advisory board, based on your comments, we would have 3 members that are appointed by the executive and confirmed by the council that would be the sanitary commission members. So this coincides with how the Code of Maryland, COMAR, is set up and structured for your recommendation for a sanitary commission. There would be 6-year staggered terms so that not all 3 would be up in the same year. Since this does require some technical expertise, you would not want to have a full new commission at any time. Those 3 commissioners would elect a chair. They would meet quarterly at a minimum, but have the ability to meet more frequently if needed. We did write that there would need to be knowledge or expertise in either engineering, architecture, planning, finance, accounting, building, or construction of water and sewer. Not any one person is going to have all that, so you'd want a mix of people on the commission that has some engineering background, some finance, et cetera. And then that all of their review is under the Public Works Department. So they would be making their recommendations to Public Works, and Public Works staff would be presenting to the Sanitary Commission when they have projects. So this is, again, a little bit of a change to the structure, that it's no longer an advisory board, but it would be and before we'd had an advisory board with 1 member reporting to the commission, and then the other commission members being from the council and the executive office. So now the 3 commissioners would be volunteer members appointed by the executive and confirmed by the council. that's what we're going to propose. Again, you'll see legislation on that in the next few months.
So I don't know if we discussed this in December, but you say three. Three seems awful thin. Is that due to COMAR, or could we have 5? Or
So you could have more. So the basic, the way COMAR is written is the standard sanitary commission is 3 members. And so if we want to do something different, we'd have to go back to have enabling state legislation. So there was kind of the thought of where this is new, if we start with the basic requirements that the state set forward and you're determining that it's an overload on those folks or you need more opinion, you could always go back. But at this point, recommending to start with what's already enabled by the state.
All right.
Okay, so the next project that we wanted to give an update on is the Salisbury Sewer Extension projects. So if you recall, we had worked with the health department to look at areas adjacent to Salisbury city limits where there's some potentially failing septics or issues with septic systems. And these are the same 3 areas that we had presented last year. So there's 3 areas that we're targeting right now, and part of the reason is because they can all be served by gravity sewer. So they're a little bit easier to serve than if a large pumping station would be required. And the 3 areas are North and South Delano Avenue, the President's Neighborhood, and then Regency Drive and Buckingham Circle. Regency Drive is a little bit of an interesting case because they already have water service from Salisbury, so this would be adding sewer service. The other 2 areas would just be adding the sewer service at this time. So as you know, last year we came before you to amend the comprehensive water and sewer plan. So to be able to apply for funding for these projects, it needed to be reflected in the water and sewer plan as a priority. So that was done last year. So next slide. So on the timeline, and I'm not going to hit every single dot here, and I think as we meet, we'll kind of compress the history, but just to explain, a lot of the planning to get to the point of being able to be ready to start design has now been completed. So the county hired KCI engineers to do cost estimates and a preliminary layout that was enough to be able to submit to Maryland Department of the Environment for a state revolving fund or SRF application. So that was done in January. We also submitted, it was in a PFA or priority funding area comment area, which means that not all criteria was met, and that's why there was a comment. Once we made the amendment to the comprehensive water and sewer plan, that met all the criteria, so we applied to become a priority funding area. So that has been approved through Maryland Department of Planning. We got that approval in March. In between there, we've met with the city of Salisbury, and we had met with them prior, but had a meeting again in February just to update them where we were and explain the process.
You submitted the priority funding area comment, and it was accepted.
Once we had the amendment.
What was accepted?
So now it is a priority funding area.
What is a priority funding area?
Those 3 areas specifically are
Okay.
now included in priority funding areas.
So they're eligible.
Which makes them eligible for state funding. So that was a requirement. If we hadn't been able to do that step, then it wouldn't have made any sense to apply for the SRF funding because we wouldn't have been eligible for it. So we have just recently applied to hire an engineering firm to do the design. The bids were opened in May, and a selection committee has been reviewing those proposals. So this month, we're looking to retain an engineering firm for design, and because that is still not public yet, that's not been finalized, I can't necessarily name who that is, but you funded design as part of the FY25 budget. We did include reimbursement for design in the request to the state for the SRF funding. The way that funding works is jurisdictions are required to forward fund design. So you have to pay for design first. Once a project goes for construction bids, that's when SRF funding is taken to the Maryland Board of Public Works, and then you can start seeking reimbursement for design. So we're still waiting. The July milestone is when MDE will announce what projects get funded this year. So we don't know yet if construction and this project will get funded.
But either way, you needed to forward fund design. If we don't get funded this year, we'll be applying again next year, and you would be reimbursed for that design when the project gets funded. Essentially, this project and the others won't move forward unless there's funding for construction. You know, you're able to, at this point, fund design, which is wonderful. Construction, and I'll show you the cost in a few minutes, is much greater. We will need support from the state and others. So, you know, I just wanted to kind of explain where we are. We do have outreach to neighborhoods that needs to get done. We would like to know what level of funding you're getting first, because if you're getting mostly grant funding, it'll make a huge difference on the cost that you're looking at. So there are a lot of decision points to come.
No kidding.
Once we know, you know, if this project gets funded, and if so, with what percent of grant and loans.
So, will it become an urban service district, or will it be an annexation?
So this would fall under Salisbury's out-of-town service agreement. So they're not being required to annex because of the health conditions that the health department has identified the need for service. So there's an out-of-town service agreement that residents would be asked to sign. Yeah, but it's not annexation.
So, but it would be an urban service
So
district?
Salisbury doesn't have that terminology anymore. They took out urban service district from their code, so it's an out-of-town service area.
Will they be responsible for a water and sewer bill just as they are now?
Yes.
2 to 3 times the normal? Okay.
1.5 to 2 times.
1.5.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but yes, they would be billed. So, you know, again, that one area, Regency Drive, already is paying a water bill, so their sewer would be added onto that. The other areas, we would need to be explaining to them that they would have an invoice.
So that's what needs a lot of outreach.
A lot of outreach.
And not to get the cart before the horse either in this. I mean, what if you have a neighborhood that says, no, I don't want to be an urban service district. I don't want that water bill. How do you? I mean, we've made all these plans with the state, and then you have a neighborhood that doesn't want to comply.
Part of that will be leaning heavily on the health department, where they identified the areas. They'll have to talk through what the alternatives are. If their septic systems absolutely fail, they don't have reserve areas, and they're having to enter into pump and haul agreements, that will be much more expensive and not sustainable in the long term. So we'll be looking to partner with the health department.
Truly, and that is a conversation to have. And of course, you know, throughout my entire career with water and sewer with the state and on-site sewage disposal, it always comes up, right? And you certainly have to take people's thought into consideration of, hey, I don't want to pay a bill for it. Areas like this that are easily identified as problem areas, especially where you don't have the ability potentially on a certain piece of property to replace your septic system, or you're going to a pump and haul situation. We used to say putting a holding tank on someone's property was pretty much the kiss of death for a property's value, let alone the burden that creates for that person living there. And then it ends up with you end up putting somebody in a position where they're having to decide whether or not to pay their bills or pump their septic tank. And you know which one they're going to take first, unfortunately. So that's why these kinds of areas, and we'll get into it later in the discussion as well, for other areas like Pittsville, Parsonsburg, where there are areas that have been identified based on their hydrogeologic conditions, their spatial conditions, the age of systems, room for replacement. That they're areas that we really, from a standpoint of protection of public health, need to identify and target, and then have those very serious conversations with the citizens, so they understand this is in the greater good. But yeah, it'll be a lot of outreach, no doubt.
So part of the white pages that were initially developed were considering the option of possible offsets for the first few years that a residents may hook up. Is that still a reality, or would that be grant oriented as well, or is that something we're going to have to?
I feel like that'll be grant-oriented, and that'll be a decision that needs to get made. So one thing we did request in the funding to the state is to help fund the connection fees that Salisbury has, and there is precedence for that on other projects, so that they're, either the resident or the county's not hit with $5,000 or whatever it is per EDU right off the bat, that it would really just be the usage fees. So we've put that in the request for the funding as well. So yeah, there's a lot of items like that.
So if you have this area, let's use this example here. So you have this one area, and majority of the houses or all of them need to be hooked up to sewer because of spacing, whatever, what was the other word?
Hydrogeologic.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll leave that one alone. I'll leave that one alone. But anyway, but in the middle of all this, you have somebody that owns an acre or acre and a half of land that's got a perfectly good septic and well. Are they going to be required to hook up to that?
And that's a great question. I think we're not going to find that in these Salisbury examples, maybe in the Parsonsburg, and a lot of that's going to depend on the funding. I don't know that Maryland's going to require that. If we end up having to branch out to USDA rural development, they typically do require that anyone in a service area has to hook up. But that's where, you know, when we're defining a service area, we're not trying to capture large parcels that have reserve areas.
And there are certainly properties like that, Mr. Holloway, where you will have that one big shining star in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff that's very small. There's been instances in other counties in the state where, you know, although you've put it through for the protection of public health, and it does depend on the funding, that you have to connect once it's available. There are times where I've seen there's been that system is staying in place until it fails. Now, of course, at that time, they've got no choice but to connect if it does, but, yeah.
So the other thing that we've heard is this promoting growth. And, of course, that wouldn't have anything to do with probably these three. But in the future, what is going to be done, and it seems kind of, it's two-sided. You know, you don't want to put a septic system in to promote growth, they say. But on the other hand, if you run a septic system down, we'll say Ocean City Road, and there's a lot of farmland or just fields, there's a lot of property that's nothing there. Are they going to be allowed to use development to develop that, or?
So no. So Maryland still has the Smart Growth Board and through that priority funding area. So they are looking very critically at all of these, and there may be some denied access lines. So again, probably more on the other projects we'll talk about, where the Salisbury ones are really just extending lines to those neighborhoods. But there will most likely be denied access lines, like from Parsonsburg to Pittsville is a good example, so that every property on there isn't just going, oh, great, now I have sewer service and we can grow. So when the state is funding these, they're funding these projects as ones to replace failing septic systems. So
Really?
we're looking at a very narrow focus.
A very good example of that is, and I had a lot of experience with it before I came here, was in Dorchester County, where they ran public sewer from Cambridge all the way to Madison and Wolford. That's a long run, but that's all denied access until you get down there. So there was people that were happy about it. There was also people that were saying, well, wait a minute, I want to be able to hook up. You can't. That would be the case here, especially when we get into talking about Parsonsburg, Pittsville.
So that Madison Wolford project I was actually the design engineer a few decades ago on that project, and that service area went around each parcel. You know, it's not a circle, it was not a clean shape. It actually went parcel by parcel so that the service area was only properties that had existing dwellings. And to your other question, I wanted to make a quick point before I forgot. For folks that maybe are hesitant to sign up or are saying, well, my system doesn't work, right now, if we get a package from the state that includes the connection fees and abandoning their septic systems, if they don't hook up when that funding's available, we couldn't guarantee that that would be available.
Let's talk about abandoning septic systems. Did they leave the tank in the ground and the drain field in the ground, or do they have to dig them out?
No. So most of the times, what would do, pump out the tank and then and put it in, crush the top, potentially put in stone and soil, but leave them in place. It's just so disruptive to try to take those out.
Okay. All right.
I just want to acknowledge that two of the three areas that are in my district and my 7 years on the council have gotten, I don't know how many calls I've gotten from folks who are not in the city but want to be in the city, and most people, you got people coming here who think that they're in the city of Salisbury when they're buying their house, and then suddenly they're going for sale, and and then they're like, wait a minute, it's not in the city, I don't want to buy, and then you've got the same situation with folks who've been selling it, and so if it, it's that's been the biggest reason why folks have called, and especially in these areas that we have highlighted, is that they go to sell their home and then they realize, wait a minute, I can't get the value that I I need to get on this house if it's on septic and well. And many of them, of course, not designed this way. They're just post World War II houses and others. So, but the density now is just so strong that it makes a whole lot of sense. So I appreciate you focusing on those areas.
Question, Dave?
Yeah, just looking long-term, and I know the comprehensive plan may have picked this up, but it seems the challenge is that there's potentially many pockets of PFAs, so it's like a patchwork that you're trying to figure out. And I don't know to what extent, or if to any extent, that can be looked at from a comprehensive standpoint and, addressed all at one time, so to speak. I know.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and really where Wicomico County is getting into this sewer and water game, we were trying to identify kind of low-hanging fruit projects, ones that would be relatively easy to do as first projects. And the Salisbury ones where we can extend these services with gravity sewer were kind of a natural. I'll talk about two more that start to increase complexity, but I think tackling county-wide all at once was going to be a little bit too much. So we were starting to get this model going, establish the sanitary commission with a few easy ones, and then certainly a decision can be made on how quickly you want to ramp up in more areas across the county. But right now, just trying to get the processes in place.
And one more question. In the areas that you've identified and mentioned here, are there already identified failing septic systems, or maybe many of them? I mean, in terms of getting the residents to go along with the program, it would probably be a lot easier, of course, if they've already experienced problems. Is that the case?
Yeah,
Yes.
they were. Go ahead, Amanda.
It is, and I didn't bring the numbers with me, but the health department had looked through their records and had given us information on how many applications they had received and what the different conditions were, and so a comprehensive study of all septic systems have not been done, and it's not required. Like, that would be a massive effort, and so we're really going based on records that they have when people are either selling their homes or adding on an addition, or just if they're having problems, if they're calling because of problems. So yeah, all three of these areas had identified. So next slide. So just real quick, I'm not going to dwell on these, but since KCI was retained to do concept plans, it's just concept level plans. This is in the first area of North and South Delano. So just so you know that the cost estimates, again, this is building on that master plan that GMB did, and now we're diving into the details. And these are the other areas of President's and Buckingham Circle, just to show the green lines are Salisbury's sanitary sewer system. So these are in sort of those weird pockets where there's sewer around these neighborhoods. So they make sense from an extension of services.
How close are you to the Cary Avenue, Pineway, behind Pohanka, the Pohanka area?
Oh, yes, okay. So that is an area that is a high need area.
You should have water and sewer close to that too.
Water and sewer is close. Unfortunately, sewer would require a pumping station there just based on the depths of the sewer, so that's why it's not one of these first projects. But water, that Gordy Road water main was recently constructed a couple years ago, and that's a large diameter. So I mean, that's one of the next few in Salisbury that would like to tackle after these. But it's only because it was going to require a pump station that it wasn't one of the first ones. But it's an area with need.
I'm not trying to prolong this, but I do have a lot of questions. There's a sewer line that runs down Mount Herman Road to the airport. Is there going to be any way to utilize that? Because right now they have to, leach it from the landfill out to the airport, put it in it so it actually works correctly or something like that? I mean.
Well, so bear with me, because this is a topic I can talk on. So you're gonna.
That's all right. I want to know about it. That's my area. That's my neighborhood.
In Mount Herman Road area. So when there are pumping stations, they pump into a force main, which is a smaller diameter pipe, and it's under pressure. And so it's taking whatever came to that pumping station and it's pumping it. We don't tend to like to tie into force mains. You can technically, there is a way to, but for the most part, a property owner living with a force main in front of their house, that's not giving them easy access to sewer service. When I talk about gravity sewer, what you're seeing there is pipes in the ground with manholes. That's what's incredibly easy to tie into. So right now, the homes on Mount Herman Road that have a force main running in front of them, it's going to be just as hard to hook them up as the Old Ocean City Road corridor that doesn't have any pipes in front of them. And to just hit real quick on the leachate question, part of why leachate is hauled all the way out to the airport is just to have it be in a remote part of Salisbury's system so that it's not hitting the treatment plant in one big slug. It's working its way through the system. So there has been discussions between the county and the city about doing that different ways, pumping into their system and still letting it go through. So that's something that might happen in the future to eliminate all that hauling.
There's no chance of hooking up to the Mount Herman Road sewer system.
I don't want to say there's no chance, but it's not as easy as if there was gravity sewer.
And the conditions in the bond
Right.
prevent that.
Yes, yeah, and there was a couple of houses on Mount Herman Road on the west side of Pine Bluff that were just hooked up by the city. They were on septic systems, they were city properties, and those had to be.
Mount Herman Road isn't on Pine.
Mount Herman, what am I thinking? What am I missing there?
Side Drive?
Mount Herman, no.
No.
Isn't it Pine Bluff?
That's okay.
Down towards down near, but anyway, so they were hooked up with E1 pumps, with smaller pumps, because it was too far away to have gravity sewer.
How many of those septic tanks to be eliminated, how many of those are failing, percentage-wise?
We could go back to the data that was provided to by the health department on how many of that 165 are actually documented as failing, right?
Right. The other thing, how many of them's rentals?
Now, we did do a look into rentals versus single owner. God, I cannot remember the breakdown of that. I think it was 70-30, 70% single family owned, 30% rental. So it was, which was
Than what the county is, or the city is.
Yeah. Which was interesting. I thought actually the rental numbers would be a little bit higher, but yeah, 70-30 I think was just about right.
We need to be clear on a failing septic is you may have a failing septic and not know it.
Correct.
You could have failing septic for a decade or
Very interesting thing about failing septic, and the state actually put into, and it had to do directly with Bay Restoration funding, a qualifier on what the definition of a failing septic system was, right? The failing septic system is hydraulic function not available. You got backing up in your toilet, backing up, coming up on the ground, whatever the case may be. The state went further with the definition of a failing system as it pertained, again, to, and I don't want to get in a rabbit hole, but Bay Restoration funding of a system that does not provide an adequate treatment zone as required per the county's groundwater protection report. A lot of systems you were just talking about post-World War II construction, deep and cheap was the way to put in. If it may have required a treatment zone of 2 to 3 foot of unsaturated soil thickness underneath of it, but it never was. System that's directly penetrating groundwater, for example, which a lot of historic systems in the county are. So effectively, from a technical standpoint, they are failing, even though they may not be coming up to grade. So yeah, there's a lot of different shades of gray to it, but we could certainly get the health department's full record of each one of these as to which ones had a true ground surface failure, backing up in the house, which ones had a holding tank installed, so on and so forth.
Again, that'll only be the ones that they know of.
Right.
They haven't tested them.
Yeah.
True.
This may have been addressed and I missed it, but, and you said this one area has already got water, Regency Drive area. Is anything you're going to do now other than if they have already got water? If you're going to break ground anywhere, is it going to be water and sewer? It's not going to just be a sewer line or just a water line?
For this project, we're going to do both.
Yeah. How about in the long term? I mean, it doesn't seem to me like you should go tear a road up just to put sewer in it, and then have to come back 10 years from now and put water in it. So I mean,
It's our desire to do that. Now, when we talk about Parsonsburg and Pittsfield was not interested in extending water service. So at this time, we were just looking at sewer service. So I think there's still going to be a little bit of case by case.
You're breaking the ground up. Are you all contacting like our natural gas suppliers and see if they want to put pipes in the ground for gas in the future?
All that'll, yes.
Go
in
into the
phase.
design.
So we're not doing that yet, but yes, absolutely, that'll.
Okay.
And next slide real quick, Adam. I just wanted to give an idea, just so you can start to get some frame of reference on costs. So this was the current cost estimate that KCI put together for the application. So this was the full amount for the SRF application, was just about $8.6 million for those 3 projects around Salisbury. So again, this was all part of, included in that master plan that GMB did, but now we're taking out specific areas and updating the costs to make them more current. Okay, so to touch.
165 houses, 160, whatever.
Oh, I don't have the total off the top of my head.
The total EDU count
For all 3 areas.
for all 3, it's almost 200, 210.
Okay, and so we'll talk about Parsonsburg, Pittsville next. So next slide. So the map here is Maryland Department of Planning's map of priority funding areas. And again, that's critical here because Parsonsburg is designated as a rural village. And so only that rural village area is what is eligible for state funding. So not saying that other areas couldn't be included if a health need was proven, but right now, that's the area that we included in the investigation. So Pittsville is currently going through a process of upgrading their wastewater plant, and they have submitted a preliminary engineering report, or PER, if you see the PER acronym, and that included an allocation to serve some septic systems outside of Pittsville limits. So the Parsonsburg PER that was done helped to prove that need. So when Pittsville applied to USDA and MDE, they were able to take our PER and use that as an amendment so they could show the need for service outside of city limits. So the health department identified 2 mobile home parks between Parsonsburg and Pittsville that have shared facilities that need to be tied in as well. So that was included in the preliminary engineering report. So that work was contracted to EA Engineering from the county, and that has been completed. Flip back just one.
Sorry.
Before I hit the timeline, real quick, I just wanted to make it very clear. We've met with Pittsville a number of times. We cannot proceed with the Parsonsburg project until Pittsville's wastewater plant is upgraded. So we're kind of taking a step back. We did not apply for state funding in this year's cycle in January because we didn't want to compete with Pittsville. Pittsville's wastewater plant needs to get funded first, and they need to be rolling before we apply for Parsonsburg. Okay, now next slide.
Is that as far west as you're going as Parsonsburg?
From Pittsville, yes.
And I'll tell you why. If you look at the distance, you probably, the Walston Switch area,
right?
Yep.
Is far enough from Salisbury that Pittsville might be the closer, at least to Walston Switch Road or to the where the railroad tracks was.
So baby steps and then capacity is the other one. So
Pardon me?
I was saying like baby steps as far as moving out a little bit, and then capacity comes into play. Again, like Amanda very well put, we're basing this on the ability of Pittsville, if it's able to fully upgrade, to, I think it was accommodated around 50,000 gallons per day flow. So outside, correct. So the rural village of Parsonsburg, in its confines that we've shown here on the PFA map, it meets just about under that threshold of 50,000 gallons per day that they can effectively take on to their wastewater treatment plant with their upgrade. So going out beyond that would take yet another so it I don't know any other way to say it, just not in the cards right this minute, but certainly going towards the Walston Switch area and some of those areas are another area that would be very useful for.
I don't know if you can find them, but when I first came on the council, they were on Matt Kramer's desk that he had everything else on, our table back there. There was plans for a water or a sewer plant right next to Walston's trailer park on a piece of property there that had been designed. Do you have any idea? Or, I don't know if you can find.
Never heard of that.
Not familiar with
No,
that.
me either.
Yeah, so that's been about 18 years ago that I saw that, but it was designed before that, and that would service.
Back when I was on council and Matt Kramer,
Yeah, that was before.
MES there was a MES study. I don't know if that's the one you're referring to.
That might be.
So for historical reasons, I can provide that.
Like we've said before in some of these conversations, you know, a decentralized, smaller wastewater treatment plant to serve some other further out areas from the county, from a municipal wastewater treatment plant may be the way to go. So we can certainly look at those things.
You got Kilburn that's probably going to end up being a problem someday. Because they have some issues
Oh,
there.
shoot. I don't disagree with that.
And I know why I misspoke on Pine Bluff. I meant Philip Morris Drive. So sorry. And I know Pine Bluff made no sense, and I kept thinking it starts with a P, Philip Morris. So anyway, back to Parsonsburg. Here's the overall timeline, and I just want to explain where we are. So EA Engineering has finished the preliminary engineering report. Pittsville has submitted that to USDA with theirs for their wastewater plant as that supplemental information to show why they would have a capacity to serve outside of city limits. So right now, we have now gone through the process of submitting a request for a PFA exemption for the mobile home parks. So because they're outside of the rural village area, the health department had identified a need. The way these are handled are a little bit different than what we've talked about before, but there would be a PFA exemption. So essentially asking that they become priority funding areas based on the health need. So that request has been submitted to the state. It is under review. Our next steps on this one is we need to watch what happens when that funding list comes out, hopefully in July. If Pittsville's treatment plant gets funded and they're off and rolling, then we could submit for funding in January at the soonest, or we see what Pittsville's schedule is and we slow that down a little bit. So it's going to depend a lot on Pittsville.
So with those two mobile home parks, the one closest to Pittsville, what's the road you lived on, Paul? Is it Rounds Road? Rounds Road. There's hardly any residences. There's a few between 346 and the mobile home park. But the one on Jones Hastings Road, the mobile home park, there's multiple residences between 346 and the mobile home park. So would you have those to be included, or would they skip them and go right to the park?
At this point, they would skip them and go right to the park only because of what data the health department had and the request that they made. At this point, it was just looking at the two mobile home parks, but ultimately that could be something that occurs in the future.
I'm going to be meeting with the health department next week as it pertains to the next project coming up on the thing here. We definitely have that kind of communication with it. Where are the areas that make sense before we go leaping into placing pipe in the ground? Is there?
Word makes sense.
Yeah.
We don't hear that a lot.
Yeah. Well, like I say, the mobile home parks, they're one of these things across the state that are, I'll tell you, when I was there at MDE, it was like the bane of my existence. They're always on very, very marginal lands in most cases. It's a high density, and they seem to always have trouble with on-site sewage disposal. And you get into shared facilities, then you need to have an authorized operator, and it's tough. It's tough for an owner of a mobile home park to put up the kind of capital necessary to upgrade to a shared facility, and a lot of times you end up with significant high percentage of failures. And that was well documented on those two, so it made sense to grab these. But yeah, we'll definitely look at everything else in the meantime. Are we ready for the next one then?
All right, so the next project is again, we've kind of kept increasing complexity. So of the projects we're going to talk about, this is the most complex, looking at the west side of the county in sort of a more regional basis. So knowing that Mardella Springs is the only incorporated municipality that does not have municipal water or sewer system, we wanted to look at not just Mardella Springs, but also Sharptown and Hebron, again, coming from a recommendation in the master plan. And mainly because Sharptown and Hebron are also just on the very early sides of starting to upgrade their wastewater plants. So they both need upgrades as well. So we had met with Hebron, Sharptown, and Mardella town officials when this first started back in 2023, and everyone agreed to let the county go through this point of doing the investigation. So again, EA Engineering is who won the proposal, the public bid to create the preliminary engineering report to really look at the alternatives of, does it make sense to have one regional plan, or just Sharptown and Mardella only. We've looked at the San Domingo community, and then also where Mardella Middle and High School have a wastewater plant, would that be brought into the mix? So there's many alternatives that are being evaluated. All of these plants discharge towards the Nanacoke River, and essentially Mardella Springs is in the Nanacoke River watershed. So when we have conversations with the state of Maryland, it's going to be important to kind of talk about the Nanacoke River watershed as a whole, because that's what they'll be interested in, is that nutrient balance throughout the Nanacoke. That's the next line. So this one, the preliminary engineering report's a bit more complex, so it's taking a while. We actually just received a draft, and we're all going through that. It's like I said, long and complicated, and I didn't even want to put in cost numbers yet because we're still reviewing it. So it's not finalized, but we're hoping within the next month to finalize that, and then to go back and have meetings with the towns before we take it to the next level and start meeting with Maryland Department of the Environment and Maryland Department of Planning. So that's where we see this progressing in the fall. And then potentially, best case scenario, if we feel like there is a project where we're ready for a funding application in January, that's where that would be going. But at this point, I can't even necessarily say the recommendations of the report because we're still just diving. We just received it and are reading it. But this one's moving along. It's progressing. And then the final one we wanted to touch on today is your comprehensive water and sewer plan. So this is different than the master plan that GMB did. Maryland requires all counties to have a comprehensive water and sewer plan, and that's you get amendments to that all the time, where you all review amendments where parcels may be changing priority level from a W6 of no service to a W1 with service, or there are text amendments for the different municipalities. So in the budget, in the FY25 budget, there was funding to hire a consultant to update the comprehensive water and sewer plan. So we advertised that RFP earlier this year in March. We opened bids, a selection committee looked at them, but all the bids were over budget. Some were just barely over budget, some were grossly over budget, but enough over that we decided to reject the bids and talk to all the bidders and get feedback as to why it was over budget. The county's comprehensive water and sewer plan is from 2010. So we wanted to make sure there were things in the RFP that we had said that county staff could do, like be the liaison talking to municipalities, especially with Tracy being on board and Adam, and they have good relationships. So we were frankly a little puzzled why the prices came out so high, because we were taking some of that back and forth off their plate. So the comment that we got from almost every company that bid is they were concerned with the level of effort in GIS. And right now, your comprehensive water and sewer plan, what's required by the state is you have static maps. So that plan has PDFs, and it shows the different areas. Making this a more current plan, we had asked that the maps be done in GIS. So there would still be a static version for that plan, but then as parcels are updated, they'd get updated online.
GIS is more interactive?
Geographic Information System, and it would be interactive. So there would be a web viewer, so anybody could pull it up and look at it online and see where their house is and see what...
You can zoom into the street. And
you can zoom into streets. So it would be a parcel-by-parcel GIS map. And certainly that exists. It would just be overlaying these layers and make it more interactive.
Imagine that. Instead of PDF sheets.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so,
right.
But pretty much every consultant that bid on it said they were worried about those costs. So we decided to investigate another direction, and we've met with ESRGC, which is the Eastern Shore Regional GIS Cooperative through Salisbury University. We've met with them because they have a contract through Tri-County Council that we can piggyback on, and they offer very affordable GIS services to counties and municipalities in the Tri-County area. So they are working on a scope of work to do this mapping, and they've done other mapping for the county before, so they have a lot of the data.
They're respected around the entire state.
And very respected. Excellent work. Yes, they do wonderful work. So we were very happy to meet with them. They were happy to have this opportunity, and we'll be putting together a proposal. So if we can do that work with ESRGC and more economically, then we'll kind of think through how we decide to approach the rest of the plan. It may be that the county goes ahead and starts meeting with municipalities and gathering that raw data, and then we put it back out to bid. We'll kind of see how the process is going, but we wanted to start with trying to take what consultants were identifying as the biggest burden and take that off their plate.
So you're saying once we possibly establish a GIS with ESRG, or ESRGC, then the bidding would come back at a lower amount?
Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely, because it is a substantial amount of the work.
Yeah.
So for one example of why it was an issue, the way the comprehensive water and sewer plan is, there's a grid that only includes the municipalities because that's where water and sewer is. So when we were looking at Parsonsburg, for example, there's not even a sheet for that. So there's no grid, there's no static PDF that we can even edit. So we were going to have to create a new map, and then the numbering's all wonky. So part of what they're going to do for us is grid the entire county so that the entire county is set up so that if we add, if there's a mobile home park or a parcel somewhere that we're adding that otherwise would have nothing around it, there's a sheet for that, and then we can just change the designation. So I think, again, for the folks that aren't working with the county's GIS on a regular basis, that seemed like a daunting task. ESRGC was like, yep, we've got the parcel data, we can do this, we can overlay these layers. So we're going to pursue that and then potentially put it back out for bid, and it should be significantly less. But I just wanted to give you that update because you have seen some of our amendments, like for those Salisbury areas. So all the amendments that you've done since 2010 would get rolled up into this new plan, and then you'd start over. So that's also part of the ask, is for ESRGC to help map out all those amendments as well. Okay, that was our brief. I didn't make it by 12:30 like you asked, but our update on just where the projects are. So.
Can you email that to us?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll just give you the scanned disc if you don't mind, Laura, because it'll.
I saved it to the.
Oh, great. Then you've got it. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions at all? No?
I have one. Trying to get all the entities squared away in my head here. And there is your Center for Watershed Protection. There would be in the future a commission, three-person commission. And then you have however many municipalities, probably with the exception of Salisbury, or not with the exception, but what are there, like seven?
Seven.
How about that, I guess. So what's the interrelationship, like, and are those municipalities amenable to whatever changes are coming down the pike, or do you kind of have to go and sell the ideas or all of the, of course, to the extent, I guess, you're helping with budgeting or funding, then it's probably a much easier sell.
Yeah, great question. I'll start with my role first. So
Yep.
the Center for Watershed Protection has been hired just to provide technical assistance. So essentially to get these balls rolling and make sure everything's in process. When you're fully staffed and you don't need me anymore, that's fine. But I'm just here helping to guide Adam and the team on next steps. So we write the RFPs to hire the design engineers and then would not bid on it because that would be a conflict of interest. So we're just here as a county's owner representative to help with the project. So you'll hire engineering firms to help do the different designs, and even, like I said, KCI did the concept plans and the cost estimates, so that type of thing would be ongoing. To the relationship with the municipalities, when this process started, I feel like maybe 2023 is when Greater Salisbury was convening some of the municipalities together. They were all brought in to talk about the master plan, and for the most part, other than Salisbury, most municipalities are saying, we're struggling with issues at our plant. We need to be upgraded. We're having infiltration and inflow issues. Like, we just don't have the capacity. So it's part of why we've targeted the projects that we have is, Delmar was saying, well, we're working on infiltration and inflow. We don't really want to take in other areas right now until we get that under capacity. But Pittsville had said, yes, once we upgrade our plant, we'll have 50,000 gallons. So we started working with them. And Salisbury said, okay, we have extra capacity. they had adopted that out-of-town service agreement, so we started working with them. So it is very much a case by case. And as you can imagine, some of the, like Sharptown right now, is struggling with their own capacity issues, their own infiltration and inflow issues. So they really don't have the ability to serve outside of town limits right now, but they have been receptive to the idea of having a regional system on the west side, because it is very hard for the smaller plants to upgrade to the higher level of treatment at the plants, because it requires a higher licensed operator. So it's hard for them to be able to find those operators to operate just their plants.
And this is kind of an unfair question, but is this ever going to grow into a Wicomico County wastewater authority, or is that pretty much what we are becoming?
That's what the sanitary
That's,
commission will say. Yes, yes. I mean, it very much, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Wicomico County will own their own wastewater plant one day and have employees and licensed operators, and that's part of why, back to your original question, we're starting small.
Yes.
And we're growing this because you don't necessarily want to own a wastewater plant on day one. You want to be able to start small with these projects, tie into municipalities, understand the workings before you're hiring an operator.
From a political and probably technological standpoint, and that would be my thought about how that would go, to have one authority, and then the decision-making gets a lot easier perhaps, because you can then identify the priorities within your own realm of influence or whatever. So, that seems to be the correct answer for the long term, with the exception of Salisbury.
Yeah.
And so that authority, the sanitary commission, there will be separate sanitary districts. So Pittsville, for example, will want to bill the county for Parsonsburg. So you will ultimately, eventually create a sanitary district that will be billed from Pittsville. You will then bill those residents and pay Pittsville. Salisbury is kind of the opposite, but I think they're the unique case where when you have no debt on the system, they will then want to own and operate it and bill the customers. I think most of the other jurisdictions will probably be more like the Pittsville model, where you will have small sanitary districts around the county that have probably very different rate structures, because it costs a different amount to treat the wastewater in Pittsville than it does in Willards, than it does in Hebron.
Of course.
So.
Very excellent program, very excellent presentation. Honestly, man, I don't think we could have found a better individual to partner with as a county, because you add so much credibility to what we're trying to do every day, and do what is in the best interest of the public. And it's so tangible now. It's really good to see that it's a tangible path that where we're headed right now with all the effort and the work with everyone else at the table. So
I want to second that
thank
comment.
you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we'll come back from time to time and redo for each of the elements, those where we were, where we are, and what's left to go.
That'd be great. Sure.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was waiting. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?